morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the rest of you. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. I'm your host Q, coming to you yet again from my mother's basement, and I'm joined by my co-host P. How goes it, P?
As always, it goes fantastically. Let's dive in.
Let's dive right into it. And we got a jam-packed episode for you guys today. We'll be kicking it off in just a moment with some news and notes. P, who are our guests today who are we interviewing today?
We are talking with Tony Giorgio, who spoke at Bitcoin 2022 and is creating a new Lightning wallet. He's a Lightning security expert called PLN. There was an article in Bitcoin Magazine published recently, so we're going to be talking about that. And then we're also going to have Ben Price of the Bitcoin Company, who has created a really interesting organization that basically helps people, interact with Bitcoin in their daily lives. So it'll be good.
All exciting stuff. And then, of course, we'll be joined by Ansel Lindner for an episode of Fedwatch. And he's got a couple special guests, but we won't ruin that surprise for you guys yet. Let's kick it off with some news and notes. So our first story is a community-initiated Bitcoin stack chain exceeded 160K in 1 week. The stack chain started by, I believe it was Arizonan Stack Chain, Arizonan Hodl on Twitter, essentially sent out a tweet saying that he stacks every day, no matter how poor he is. And they have now, in less than 7 days, managed to stack just about 7 Bitcoin. Essentially what happens is you start with buying $1 and then your next buy is $2 and you just keep going. I believe the current count is at 549. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but truly incredible to see a grassroots effort grow to a level where, these people have cumulatively bought 7 Bitcoin, not just one individual, but amongst an entire community of people. Goes to show you just how far reaching Bitcoin Twitter can go, and, continue to stack stats and stay humble, my friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, this is not some side chain. It's not some other project. This is basically, as Derek Ross said, it's just, just fun shitposting with a little bit of Bitcoin lingo thrown in to make it more fun as we shitpost and buy Bitcoin. So essentially, it's just creating this sort of like social pressure and social excitement around what we all recommend everyone do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis or on whatever basis makes sense to you, which is DCA into Bitcoin. So it's literally just creating this stepwise function, as you said, of Bitcoin daily or weekly stacks. So I love it. It's during these bear markets, there's a couple things that happen. One, fighting. That's always during a bear market. You get some just amazing trolls, memes, shit like that. Also, people build an incredible amount of software because they're not as distracted by the price and all of the people piling in who are just trying to get rich quick. And so we come up with ways to entertain ourselves during this period, and I love it.
I'm happy to be back, guys. I love the memes. When I was gone, yellow's "We are building" or "I am building" meme, and now we got the Bitcoin stack chain. I believe Corey already said that he will buy the $1,000 stack if they do get that high. So, $1,000 buy. So it'd be funny if Sailor's like, "Yo, I'll buy $1 million if we get to the $1 million mark or whatever."
God.
But yeah, it's just the memes, the meme of it all, and memes rule the world. And I think it's really funny. Q, I actually think it was higher than what you said, though. I think it was 586 is what I saw. I think you were saying 549, 548. I think I saw
amazing.
586. So $586 in one buy. And like Q was saying, it's not one person buying $1, $2, $3. It's like, I bought $1, Q bought $2, P bought $3, and then so on and so forth all across the internet.
I got to say, with my $1 every hour purchase, I technically am a part of the stack chain, just probably at the very beginning, because I refuse to ramp that buy up right now.
No, you're actually you're a split chain. You're an altcoin.
False.
Someone
mute him for false and fake information. False news. Great to have Chris back. As everyone saw, we were scrambling the bits yesterday and Friday. So thank you, our fearless leader, for returning to our good graces. Moving over to the other side of the world and India, CoinSwitch, India's largest crypto investing app, has waived off trading fees on Bitcoin transactions on its platforms for a limited period of time. I mean, look, we saw Binance do something similar about a month ago. You're seeing these platforms starting to offer no fees or minimal fees. However long this lasts remains to be seen. I view this as an onboarding expense more than anything. No different than when you get like $10 for sending your friends to Strike and they set up their account. Like all of these types of services will inevitably have to come to an end. It'll be interesting though. There was a statistic I just read on Twitter that of the total Bitcoin supply, there's only 12.6% of it being held right now by wallets marked as centralized exchanges. So as this amount continues to diminish, the profitability of an exchange selling Bitcoin diminishes with it. And what are these exchanges inevitably going to do? Well, as we saw with this one, this is a crypto exchange, not a Bitcoin exclusive one. So I'm sure they're still making or will attempt to make money with their casino, if you will. Initial thoughts on, yet another exchange offering no fees?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really think this is that much of a story. This is, Strike has offered this for a gazillion years. That's a specific amount of years. On Strike, you've always been able to buy with, zero fees. They still charge you, they still pass on Bitcoin network fees, which is totally normal and fine. That is to say when you buy Bitcoin and then transfer it off, but they have never charged you for an additional VIG for the purchase of Bitcoin. So I think it's cool because it encourages more people to buy Bitcoin, but it is mostly just a marketing ploy. Similar to, Robinhood announcing, or when they, debuted being like zero fee trading, and then everybody else had to ape in and offer the same thing. I would love to see it if more and more exchanges started doing that, but it's a PR move. It's a cool one, but it's a PR move.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're all competing. I mean, Jack Mallers is like, I'm setting it to zero, so everyone's got to come and compete. I don't know if Strike is based in India. I know they're based in the US, but I don't know if they have any clients there yet. They're not. Okay. I know they're expanding slowly. Obviously, El Salvador, the US, they're looking to go to Europe soon. I believe they're also in Argentina. So, maybe Strike will get there and compete against them. The one thing that was interesting, CoinSwitch made the note to say it's for a limited period only. So obviously they're just trying to pull in as much customers as possible. Do you think Coinbase has offices or clients in India or not? Or are they strictly US based as well? Because I wonder, I know Binance was definitely trying to eat Coinbase's lunch by doing promotional things to get people off Coinbase, and as they're getting hampered with obviously the SEC regulations that they're getting cracked down against. I know you guys talked about it yesterday and stuff.
I'm seeing really quickly right now, Australia, Canada, Singapore, US, UK, Andorra, and Belgium. There's a good chunk of Europe that Coinbase can operate in as well. But I do not see India on this list. And this is from Coinbase Help. So I do think, though, there's something very interesting you brought up. And, Mahler's did this. And there's another sector that also had a similar sort of shift. And that is just the Robinhood of it all. The fact that Robinhood offered zero commission trading, and then what happens now, all of a sudden you can get zero commission trading on just about any stock platform. So it really is interesting that this is being done, how it sort of transpires, how it affects the rest of the industry. I would view this move by CoinSwitch not as a leader of the industry, but more of a reaction to the fact that all of their industry peers are doing this. Chris, can you quickly check what jurisdiction Binance operates in? Because I wonder if this actually would help them. This would be a direct combination with Binance, which is also said. So Binance owns Indian Bitcoin exchange Wazir X. So unsure if Wazir X offers zero Bitcoin trading or not, but if they do, boom, that is the inclination as to why CoinSwitch is making this offer. I'm going to move on to the next story unless there's anything else either of you guys wanted to contribute here. Cool. Moving on. This is the big story, I think, coming out of Bitcoin Twitter today. U.S. Senators Patrick Toomey and Kristen Sinema are trying to push forward a tax exemption for crypto users making small buys of less than $50, tax exempt. I mean, this would have been really cool like 10 years ago when $50 would have bought you like your whole groceries or maybe like 2 tanks of gas. Seeing as $50 doesn't even get me a whole tank of gas. Seeing as $50 like maybe covers one type of meat at the grocery store. This is a little tricky. I think it's well intentioned. I think this is a step in the right direction. What I worry is this will be one of those instances where, well, we did something for crypto, so like give us your votes. No, I'm not going to do any more for crypto until you give me your votes. And now we're like being held in this sort of stranglehold of you did almost nothing. Like, what can you buy right now with $50? And if you say $50 for the Bitcoin, P, I'm going to come through the camera and slap you in the face.
Yeah, that's a good question. The answer is definitely $50 with a Bitcoin.
Come
at me, bro.
I truly hate you.
Come at me. In $50 is
like, ooh.
Oh,
Are you out of the Matrix or are you still in the Matrix?
I think you're still in the matrix there a little bit, P.
All right. While P tries to get out of the Matrix, I will list a couple of things that are worth $50 real quick. You can get like really high quality weed, like an eighth of it, or you can get like a shittier quarter of weed for $50 in California, at least. I can get like less than $10 of gas. I can buy dinner.
10 gallon. You said $10. You mean 10 gallons?
Yes, thank you. Less than 10 gallons of gas. Honestly, less than 9 gallons of gas. I could maybe do like dinner for just myself at a really nice restaurant, or if I'm feeling cheap, like dinner for me and my girlfriend at like one of our like cheap dinner date spots. I could do that. Chris, what else? What can you buy for $50?
I mean, soon gumballs will be $50 with inflation at this rate. But no, I mean, I think that there's going to be, if this passes, obviously they're proposing this bill and it's not passed yet, so it's all speculation. But it's one of those things that people are going to game the system. There's a $10,000 limit for how much you're allowed to transfer into a bank in or out without being flagged by the IRS. So people transfer $999 and $95 to avoid, the $5 fee that they accidentally go over or something like that. So like, it's definitely going to be game that you're like, hey, can I just do this as two $50 transactions?
I've done that before. I've literally cashed in like $9,900 at a time before, when I just didn't feel like, having the IRS know what I was up to.
When I was buying a car once, it was like 15 grand. And like, I basically I forget what they did. My credit card limit wasn't high enough. So my parents put on their credit card and I transferred over like 2 payments to my parents to buy the car basically. Yeah. And I didn't want to get dinged with the IRS. So it was like, you had to game the whole system to do this. So yeah, it's going to be a loophole that's going to be exploited for sure.
I'm just wondering, like, in asking for a friend, but can you buy a Lamborghini in $50 payment increments?
You just stream to the Lamborghini dealership of like continuous $50 payments.
Well, like, think of it like this. If I'm doing a $50 payment every single day, that's $1,500 a month, which is honestly like on par, if not more than what a Lamborghini would cost on a monthly basis.
Maybe you could do it by hour. And I don't know.
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. I think it's probably higher than that with insurance and stuff too.
You're right. It definitely, actually, if I do the math really quickly in my head, and like my $30,000 MSRP car has a monthly payment of like however much, if I just add a zero to all of that, it doesn't work. So fuck. No. Quick math, you cannot buy a Lamborghini with this bill. So this bill doesn't work for us.
P, what are your thoughts?
Am I out of the Matrix? Can you guys hear me?
You're out of the Matrix and you're unmuted. So this is a first.
Amazing. I mean, you guys have nailed it. Like, the fucking you do $50. It's insulting. Just slap in the face.
I know Lawrence Lepard was talking about this. I forget on whose podcast. It might have been Preston's, but like with the privacy that senders on the Lightning Network get, receiving is a different story because you kind of dox, your IP address and your node and stuff, or if you're using someone else's node. But that aside, like if I were to send P $5 or $2. Like it's very, very hard to track when normally for the sender of Lightning things. So P, I guess, do you have any thoughts with more on the technical side of like, obviously you said a plebnet and stuff, but like the privacy guarantees that being a sender in Lightning, like I said, there is some nuance. If you're a receiver, you can kind of figure it out or calculate it, but it's still difficult.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, privacy for senders is way, way better than privacy for receivers. We're actually going to be talking about this later because this is one of the challenges that the PLN wallet, which is being developed by Tony Giorgio and Paul, aims to address. But yeah, I mean, if you are receiving payments, it is very difficult currently to maintain a modicum of privacy. And there's a lot of things that are being developed that aim to help that. But as of right now, it's a challenge for sure.
I want to also highlight Winsome Hacks brings up a really good point. When you accept the tax exemption, KYC will follow. So I think there's a lot more, baked in behind the catchy tagline or the one-liner that's going to draw you in. So I do think that anyone who wants to just blindly support this bill because it does something incrementally good for the argument around a medium of exchange for Bitcoin needs to take some time and really evaluate what is the full scope of this bill, and B, what is the realistic sort of lift or ask by us if we need this changed. Because let me tell you, things, unfortunately, the government have a way of, we'll get around to changing that or updating it when it's needed. When was the last time that happened? Actually, like off the top of your heads, when was
it never
the last
fucking
time?
happens.
Exactly.
Bridge tolls are the classic example where, it's supposed to be something that is temporary in order to help them pay bridge. Inflation, these limits.
P, you're in the Matrix.
Oh,
yeah, you're
fuck,
falling into the Matrix.
Deep in the Matrix right now, my guy. What can I say? The richest people always tend to have the shittiest internet, as we learned yesterday. I think this is the moment that we should come clean and admit something to you guys. I see a lot of you calling me a shitcoiner because I want a Lamborghini, like whatever. It is time to finally come clean, though, and admit to you that HODL did get to P, and P is now a Litecoin maxi. So that is no doubt what is happening right now. You know how Litecoin maxis do with just the worst internet of all. I want to spend some time really dissecting this, though, because my fear with this, or my larger concern, is what $50 can buy you today will be a drop in the bucket of what it can buy you. Or no, that's not the right idiom. Essentially, its buying power will continue to diminish over time. It's being tied to the US dollar. If they instead said something like 0.001 Bitcoin, which they would never do, but would be fucking awesome. Like something like that, like 0.01 Bitcoin, 1 million Satoshis, 10 million sats, something like that, where it's no longer tied to the dollar, which is going to continue to inflate until you're literally paying with $100 bill for your 99-cent Arizona iced tea. Just wait. I've said crazier things on this show that have come to life. But at this point now, I'm just trying to say the most outlandish things.
Yeah, I know when Senator Lummis and Gillibrand had their bill jointly, she had the GitHub for plebs to comment. I commented on Twitter, but I was like, can we set this as 1 million sats or 2 million sats or whatever the equivalent of $600 was at the time? Because exactly to Q's point, it's deflationary. And, that 2 million sats could be like, not many people have 2 million sats one day. So it's like, we're never going to hit that number versus an inflationary currency. you're going to hit like 10,000 sats is now the equivalent of $72,000 back in the day when they implemented it. So I think it'd be cool to change the standard. I mean, Q, back me up here. You can disagree with me, but they don't want to lose their control. Like, that's very apparent. So they want to leave it as a US dollar amount that they can control, basically.
The moment the US government starts to price things not in the dollar, the rest of the world will take that as a signal that the US government that prints the US dollar has lost faith in the pricing power of the dollar. So the likelihood of something like that happening is like truly as close to impossible as shit, me and my ex getting back together. Sorry, I just had to. But like, or I don't know, like fucking 3 successive asteroids coming and striking in the middle of this fucking like valley in my parents' like backyard. Like, that's genuinely the likelihood of this. So, of the US government coming out and not pricing something in the dollar anymore. Now, if other countries were to come out and start shying away from pricing their goods in the dollar, and all of a sudden we were sort of the last country left doing it, kind of like how we use the imperial system and no one else does, right? We use the imperial system. I don't even fucking know. Whatever. But like that, like the US has proven that we are so dumb that we would actually go so far as to like let the rest of the world operate on grams and meters, and meanwhile we're going to use pounds and feet. Like, fuck, we're so stupid sometimes. But
I will say one of the funniest tweets I saw all weekend, Q, unrelated to Bitcoin, is that, you know how the euro flipped the dollar? It's like, it's soccer now, bitch. Like, the dollar has stronger purchasing power than the euro. I was dying. I think ESPN FC tweeted that.
I'm gonna text that to McCormick, because he, every single time I bring up his soccer team, he's like, football club, not soccer team, football club. It's like, no, dollars.
How are my levels? Can you hear me?
You're good. Yep, we can hear you. You're good.
All right.
Do you want to hit the next story, Q, now that P is back out of the Matrix?
We can, although I want P to just be aware that we did come clean on your behalf, and we let everyone know that you are a Litecoin maxi now.
Jesus fucking Christ. That was satire. Do not go buy Litecoin. Fuck Litecoin. It is oh God, it was such a scam. It was one of the first tokens that Coinbase, like, basically the creator worked at Coinbase. He was like, yo, you should promote this shitcoin that I have. And then came up with all these narratives around it. It was going to be silver to Bitcoin's gold. Bunch of people aped in. And then right at the top in 2017, he was like, you know what? Litecoin is bullshit. I'm selling all my shit. And like tanked the price, made a fuck ton of money, and then exited. And fuck him and fuck Litecoin.
I guess this ties in perfectly. So with that transition, P, I wonder what the statute of limitations is for something like that. So obviously it's been about 5 years. Do you think they can still go after him for something like that? Or is it like, at what point is it like, oh, we can't get him for a crime for like whether it's a security, listing securities and rug pulling, like can you go after someone after 5 years? Or I don't know.
Who the fuck knows? I think that there are many, probably even more egregious examples of just fucking over and rug pulling the people that have given you a bunch of money. I have no idea if that one is rises above the threshold of like, somebody actually getting persecuted. I mean, I think even if they tried, I think it would be similar to what's happened with the 3AC founders and fucking Do Kwon. They'll just disappear. The history of Bitcoin is littered with shitcoin rug pulls, and it will continue to happen until people actually take accountability for understanding what it is that they're buying. And people don't like to do that. People love to, be embraced by the bosom of the state and rail against other people for not informing them enough. But you just got to take responsibility for your own shit.
Odell was bringing this up on Rabbit Hole Recap, and I think he said, so right now, if we're at global adoption of 2% or 1.5% Bitcoin, he thinks that global adoption for self-custody, so that 2% is you think it's 2% of 2% that actually do self custody, whether it's a hot wallet or a cold wallet. Obviously, cold wallet's much better, but think about there's a lot of people that are like, I trust the exchange more than I trust myself in losing it. And I know that's the wrong take, but he's just that's just the reality. Because Obi talked about how part of the reason for doing federated mints or federated Chaumian mints was to, if you're like one of us, we could do the mint for our family to protect our family's wealth. Because a lot of people are like, oh, Obi, I trust you. He used to be running, I forget the name of the exchange. I'm drawing a blank. P, you remember Obi's exchange that was
Not
running?
off the top of my head. But even more importantly, you don't have to trust Obi. That's the whole point. You're not trusting Obi. You're trusting.
Yeah, well, they were saying, I trust you more than I trust myself. He's like, I don't want you to trust me. He's what he was telling clients. And it was even they were trying to promote. They were like, we'll give you $10 extra or $5 extra in Bitcoin if you withdraw it from your account. And people are still like, no, but then it's the self-custody risk and I can lose it all. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to get people to, aside from having their money confiscated, what's going to cause people to actually take responsible in their actions. And maybe it is that. Maybe it's a sweeping ban of hey, we're confiscating your bank accounts and your crypto accounts that you don't self-custody. I don't know.
By the way, he was the CEO of CoinFloor.
Thank you. Yes, that's what it was.
It was a UK only exchange. It was a really good one. But I mean, look, pain is an excellent teacher. We try through all the education that we do and the larger community does to prevent people from having those shitty experiences. But there's a reason that adoption of Bitcoin is so much, or rather, people in other countries that have been affected by the overreach of the state and, systematic financial oppression by centralized financial entities are able to understand the use case of Bitcoin so much more rapidly than people in the US, right? We have lived in an incredibly privileged position of being the country that manufactures the world reserve currency. We have systems in place that prevent the types of situations, or have so far prevented the types of situations that people in a lot of Central and South American countries and people all over the world on a day-to-day basis. Hyperinflation is a concept. I don't even understand what the fuck hyperinflation is in terms of my day-to-day experience. I have an intellectual understanding of what that means. I have stories that I tell myself of having to bring a wheelbarrow full of cash to buy a loaf of bread. But none who has not experienced that can really internalize what that means. And so, it's a challenge. It's absolutely a challenge. I think through education, we're getting better and better about it. And, but as Odell said recently in the spaces that we did with Obi and Eric Sirian and Justin Moon, when they announced the new company they've launched, Fedi, which is they're building a wallet and systems around federated Chaumian mints, people will always choose the path of least resistance. And so our one really successful way to onboard more people and empower them to hold their own Bitcoin or hold their own Bitcoin in these federations that are a huge, huge step above having your Bitcoin or the value that you've accrued stored in a centralized exchange or a centralized bank. The only way to do that, or one of the most effective ways, is to make that easier. So that's what Fedi's trying to do. That's what Tony Giorgio and Paul are trying to do with PLN. It's what Ben, who we're going to be talking to in a minute, is trying to do with the Bitcoin company. So we just have to figure out ways of making the private uses of Bitcoin, or more private uses of Bitcoin, the path of least resistance. And we're getting there. But it takes a lot of work and takes time. What else we got?
We got one story, but want to touch on it real quick, or do you want to transition?
Well, I was going to give you the opportunity, Chris. We're just talking a little bit now about Coinbase. P and I talked about it yesterday. If you just wanted to chime in real quick, and then we'll wrap up news and notes after that.
Okay. Yeah, about the SEC?
Coinbase SEC stuff.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. The SEC is obviously going after them for potentially listing securities. I haven't had a chance to really look into the details of the lawsuit. It's very interesting. I know the SEC says that they're it appears they're holding everyone hostage for the Bitcoin ETF, even though they made short products or futures contracts that you can use to short and suppress the price. They're trying to get compliance. Did they say specifically what they're going for, or was this in lieu of the Luna collapse and such that they're basically going after them for? Do you guys remember by any chance? You guys are both muted, I think. Yeah.
I think this was more so to do with the insider trading of it all.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the insider trade, the listing of the NFTs and such. Yeah. And even it's funny, an anonymous account on Bitcoin Twitter, not that he was called up in there, but basically it was like, oh, because of a prominent Bitcoin, I think it said influencer or something like that, but he had a list of like how the one guy had the one wallet with all the listings for NFTs and such. So basically they caught wind of it from Bitcoin Twitter, which is actually pretty funny. But yeah, I guess it remains to be seen. Coinbase is obviously hurting. Obviously they gambled with the shitcoin casino. I think they should have been Bitcoin only. And obviously Binance and other ones are smelling blood in the water, and they'd love nothing more to take them out. But yeah, it's really interesting what's going on and what's going to come from it. I guess I'll caveat the one last piece. I know their chief legal officer, he was saying that like, oh, we've always complied with the laws. We follow all SEC laws. We're open to dialogue. But he has .eth in his profile handle, which ETH is not my opinion. It's just the Howey test. It fails the Howey test, or passes the Howey test, meaning that it's a security. So it's just very funny. But it seems that the SEC is going to posture to make ETH a commodity like Bitcoin. I don't know why. I'm not a lawyer on that, but it's very interesting to say the least.
Indeed.
So I want to, before we cut to a commercial break and then bring on our guests for today, I want to remind everyone the tickets for Bitcoin Amsterdam are on sale now. Use promo code BMLive to get 10% off of those tickets. Would love to have you guys join us in Amsterdam. It's going to be an incredible time. It's Bitcoin Disneyland, except in Amsterdam of all places. So like anything goes. There are no rules. Yeah, buy your tickets now. Let's cut to a commercial break and let's bring on Tony and Ben.
Let's do it.
You are listening to Bitcoin Magazine Live. Listening to Bitcoin Magazine Live. Number one Bitcoin Magazine Live. You are listening to Bitcoin Magazine Live. Listening to Bitcoin Magazine Live. Number one Bitcoin Magazine Live. Sama.
Welcome back, and thank you everyone for sticking through those commercial breaks. P, can you introduce our guests for today?
Absolutely. We've got Ben of The Bitcoin Company, goes by a Bitcoin person on Twitter. He's done a bunch of incredible stuff, has helped to finance and create systems that finance Bitcoin devs so that they can continue to do what they love best and what benefits the network. He's an incredible contributor, and we're excited to have him. We've also got Tony Giorgio, who is a Lightning security expert, has done a bunch of amazing shit, and most recently is working with Paul to build a new Lightning wallet that is designed to not only maximize your privacy, but also to communicate really effectively with users and new users about those trade-offs and make people aware of the trade-offs that they're taking on when they use Bitcoin specifically over the Lightning Network. Welcome to you both. How's it going? Tony, you there? We cannot hear you, my friend. Please.
Do you also turn your camera on?
Is
This is a live show where we see our pretty faces. What's up, Ben?
What's up, guys?
How's it going?
Oh, hey, we lost
Tony's
Tony.
out. Well, hopefully he will be able to rejoin us in the near future. Ben, what did I leave out? Tell the people who you are and why you're fucking awesome.
I think I'm just a normal Bitcoin person. I don't think I'm that awesome. The people who really build all the cool stuff are the other Bens, like Ben Carman, who's my co-founder. He's doing the dirty work all day, doing all the integrations with our service providers and stuff. And then I think you mentioned Paul. Paul is actually Paul and John from Zapright were really influential building out OpenSats, which you alluded to, which is the 501c3 for free and open source funding and contributors to Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna show myself too hard. I'd be happy to talk about how cool Tony is.
Do it. While I wait for him to jump back, give us your best Tony pitch. And then what I'd love you to do is to...
I don't know that Tony's gonna join with a video. I think you guys, you might.
There he is.
Shit, we got him.
You're
your
still
mic's off.
muted, bro.
The technical trials and tribulations.
He's probably using the what do you call it? The satellite Wi-Fi from.
Good guy. All right. Well, hopefully we'll be able to get him to jump in. In the meantime, Ben, can you tell us what the Bitcoin company is and what you're trying to achieve? And before that, I did leave out an extremely important detail, which is that you won pitch day at Bitcoin 2022, which I was super excited about. You got this massive trophy that was like 6 feet tall, and you beat out all the competition. There were a lot of really amazing other companies that were there, and you won. So, well, you won the specific section that you were focused on. So there were multiple, sort of areas.
Ben, before you answer Pete's question, I want to rephrase it. Give us and the audience the pitch that won pitch day, please.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Hit us with it.
Well, the pitch that won pitch day was like kind of about the bigger vision of the company and where we really want to take it. And so that pitch is more about building a full stack financial services company that treats Bitcoin similar to how a bank treats dollars. So instead of treating you like a crazy person for wanting to invest your money in Bitcoin or wanting to send money on Saturday, we treat you like a normal person and we enable that. However, where we are today is we've basically built out a loyalty and rewards company, as well as a company that allows you to basically live off your Bitcoin. So a lot of times when I'm just trying to create a comp, it looks a lot like BitRefill or Pay with Moon or some sort of fold competitor. We let you buy hundreds of gift cards, Uber, Airbnb, hotels.com, Delta. So like you can live off your Bitcoin, and we give, you can buy gift cards for all these companies and we give you sats back. And so the goal is to really get as many people off zero as possible. And then pretty soon, actually our target launch date is November 1st. I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but we want to launch our Bitcoin exchange and our banking services. So really what we're trying to build is an end-to-end solution where you get everything you come to expect from your traditional bank, everything you come to expect to buy, sell, hold Bitcoin, but also just like a bunch of ways to earn free Bitcoin as well. So that's the grand vision. Where we are today is kind of on the loyalty side, gift cards and international Visa cards like Pay with Moon. And then today, Carmen and I are here in Austin working on our latest couple products. So we're about to push out phone top-ups to prepaid providers, about 800 around the world, and card-linked offers, which let you kind of hook up your existing Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and then maybe go shop at, I don't know, Jimmy John's or Burger King, and we just give you like $3 or $4 back in Bitcoin. So we're trying to start building out some, just as many freaking ways to give out free Bitcoin as possible. And then eventually, if you want to opt into a Visa debit card that gives you Bitcoin back on every purchase, you'll have that. If you want to do direct deposit, if you want to do top-ups after you swipe your card into Bitcoin, we'll have all these services. So that's the vision that one pitch day, I guess. That was actually my first time ever publicly pitching, so it was a little nerve-wracking. But yeah, that trophy was ridiculous. It just got delivered here to Austin, so we'll have to put it up in Bitcoin Commons or something.
Oh, you have to. I mean, it's as tall as you are, basically.
Did Mr. Wonderful give you some sort
really
of like
was.
quip while you were pitching, like in his classic Shark Tank-esque
No, I didn't have. I was on the adoption track, and I'm not sure what
Mm.
Mr. Wonderful was, but I did not have the pleasure of creating a competitor to his green Bitcoin company.
Jesus.
I would have loved. I would have loved to throw in a jab or two there, but I didn't get that chance. No.
Oh god.
But yeah, I actually the second place winner got a like limited edition autographed Bitcoin magazine, and we got like a huge trophy, which I have no idea what to do with. I'm a little bit jealous, to be honest.
Wait, P, how did you fuck up the prizes that bad?
It wasn't me, bro. Wasn't me.
Remedy
Yeah,
this.
we got rugged on a few things with that. We were told there was a little bit of a Bitcoin prize that never came through.
No shit. All right, we'll follow up after this.
I keep
That sounds
giving.
fucked
I
up.
think it was Harper. I've always given Harper shit. So if he's out there, if he's listening, he knows.
You could give Harper shit. That's what his role was designed to do, was to absorb shit so that P could operate at maximum capabilities.
There you go.
It's true. It's true. He did an amazing job. I could not have done the programming for Bitcoin 2022 without Harper. Shout out to Harper. He's fucking incredible. We would stay up until like 4 or 5 in the morning, just madly going through and trying to set up the
it
most
was
awesome program we
incredible.
could.
The size and scope of that conference was unreal. I mean, I'm thinking about going through to Bitcoin Amsterdam, but it sounds like you guys are back in Miami next year. That'll be a blast again. I don't know.
Hey Ben, don't think too hard about it. Just let's go to Amsterdam and smoke some weed.
Well, we'll at least be in Amsterdam. I hear there's other legal things as well there.
I just gotta
Let's try-
find the
I was
real
talking about
space
one thing,
cakes.
so I guess I should clarify that. Damn it.
Well, yes. In case anyone is wondering, Ben is talking about psilocybin mushrooms, and yes, I will also partake. But we need to find like the real space cakes, not like these bullshit like, oh, the tourists, like give the tourists this shit. No, fuck that.
You want to wake up like 72 hours later and be like, what the fuck happened?
I genuinely, if you guys watch Atlanta, they have an episode where they go off and do space cakes in Amsterdam, and it's a fucking trip. I want that. I want to feel as though my life is about to end.
Jesus.
I've been to Amsterdam a few times, and there's actually, if you go like west, 2 stops. If you go west 1 stop, I think it's the airport. But one more is this little town called Leiden. And it's like a mini Amsterdam, not as many people, not as crowded. And it's really freaking nice. I might end up staying there and training in. But that'll be my game plan, I'm thinking. Amsterdam's just too crowded these days, man. It's
This
just like,
fucking guy, too good for us to hang out in Amsterdam.
the trains,
Gotcha.
I mean, that's one of the great things about Europe is you can travel anywhere in about like 1 minute with a train that like speeds off to another country. So I remember being stuck in Paris one time and all the people were just like terribly mean to me. It was cold and rainy. And I just like hopped on a train and was in Amsterdam in 3 hours and improved my life drastically.
Well, our producer Chris just suggested space cake gift cards for the Bitcoin.
No, that was me.
Oh
you
shit,
go.
that was you.
That was
We
me.
I
can
take
sell
it
anything.
back.
We could
Dude,
sell anything.
I genuinely think like what's to stop the Bitcoin company from working with because for example, one thing that I find very interesting is how you guys have this weird loophole with your Visa gift cards. I don't know if this is something that you want to like talk about publicly or not.
Sure.
Can
We're
you
fucking
share
doing it.
Can you
I'm not
share
sure
with
what
everyone
you're referring to, but happy
the
to
fact that if
chat.
I buy my Visa gift card through my VPN to say that I'm outside of the US, I can now use this gift card anywhere in the world, correct? Versus if I buy it while I say I'm in the US, I can only use that gift card now in the US.
Well, we just assume our users are using our platform from wherever they come in from. There's a few stored value laws. Gift cards are broken into 2 categories: open loop and closed loop. Closed loop gift cards, that's like Airbnb, Uber, and open loop are like Visa, MasterCard, Amex. Now, FinCEN basically says under certain values, these are unregulated. You fall into like a stored value exemption, which is why you always see in these stores, you'll never be able to buy more than a $2,000 Home Depot card or a $1,000 Visa card. And that's because those are the limits they impose on these cards. Now, what's funny is there's a $10,000 limit a day, but there's a per card limit as well. So you can buy 10 $1,000 cards, but you can't buy a $1,001 card. So, I mean, that's an interesting, weird one. But there's another clause that these cards cannot be reloadable. And that's why these Pay with Moon and ours are single load cards or one-time use cards. Sometimes people use them in that way. But they can't be topped up without extensive KYC, because then you fall out of the stored value exemption. And then there's one additional clause that FinCEN, which is the governing body in the United States, has that says these funds can't be used internationally. So if you're a U.S. user, then you cannot have a Visa card that can be used internationally without KYC. I mean, you can KYC and get whatever you want. So all of our users outside of the U.S., Canada, Amsterdam, wherever you are, you are able to get an international card. And so I was just spending it in Croatia, Dominican Republic. We have users in Mexico, Brazil. People are really starting to use them for like remittances. It's much easier to top up a Visa card and send that to your family than go wait in line at Western Union or TransferWise. And a lot of people are starting to use this as like an alternative to a bank account. And that's been really cool to see. We were not expecting such an adoption of like the international Visa card usage. And given that we're now pushing on a few new markets. So we're trying to get a Euro card. We're trying to get a pound card. I think our next card is actually going to be a rupee, an Indian rupee card. And so we're going to push hard on that use case and try and get as many people living off Bitcoin as possible. Because unfortunately, not that many merchants accept it today, but almost everyone accepts Visa. So when you can top up a card in real time and spend it anywhere, it's basically the same as spending Bitcoin.
That's awesome.
Sorry, that was a long talk.
No, it was fucking fantastic, man. How did you come up with the idea? By the way, unfortunately, Tony Giorgio has just let us know he's having internet issues. He will not be able to join us today, but we will have him back on in the near future to go through the stuff he's doing with PLN. But
Ben, how do you feel having Tony rug pull and making you now our only guest? You now have to fill 90 minutes with us. You only really had the obligation of 45, but now you got 90.
Well, I've got Paul in the other room. We've got some special guests I could bring in.
Oh shit, drag him in here, man. Let's fucking go. They'd have to join over video though, like separately from you. But yeah, man, let's fucking go.
Well, I want to keep going down the gift card rabbit hole for a moment, because as you mentioned, you're not the only company that sort of does this. There's Bit Refill. Like I literally was on Fold last night buying my Domino's gift card to buy Domino's. So why is the Bitcoin company different than these companies? Like what is it that your users are coming to you for that's different than these other companies?
So you're right. We're not the first one to do this. It's a business model that was a good start. It lets us, like the economics behind it. There's different ways that gift card or like merchants make money off gift cards. Typically, there's some breakage, which means people don't spend the whole value sometimes. Oftentimes they overspend. It's free marketing. It's like kind of like a brand's logo in your face all the time. And so what they do is they end up giving us a discount and we pass that back on to our users. And so for me, it's like a free marketing engine. Instead of spending VC dollars and just paying my users, free sats that are, we're draining our marketing budget, I can actually like build a business model, give away free sats and not lose money in the process. And so there's tons of companies that do this. I mean, every CVS or Walgreens you go into has been doing this for years. They just typically don't accept Bitcoin. So there's a few companies out there that do accept Bitcoin. I think Coin Corner, I think Bit Refill was the original, and Fold are the top ones that come to mind. I might be missing a couple, so I'm sorry. What's been great is they're all been really helpful. The way I'd say we're different, Bit Refill, they were the OGs. They've been around the longest. They accept on-chain as well as Lightning, as well as honestly like a few shit coins like Dogecoin and other things. But you can spend with a lot of different cryptocurrencies with them. And they probably have the largest catalog out there. Credit to Sergey. I don't know. I don't know how he gets all these brand approvals, or if he's just like running around with 20 different organizations under different names. But a lot of these brands don't want to work with Bitcoin companies. So it's often hard. Amazon's a tough one to get. Apple's a tough one to get. But Bit Refill, they're the OGs. They, I think, paved the way for accepting Bitcoin for gift cards. And I think they do have the largest kind of like international portfolio. Paxful is another one that comes to mind. Fold is a little more focused on the Visa card, a reloadable Visa card that earns you Bitcoin back. That's their kind of bread and butter. I think sooner or later they're going to come out with a Bitcoin collateralized credit card, but they also do sell gift cards for Bitcoin. And I think they accept credit and debit card from most of them as well. And then who am I missing? What we do, I guess, we only accept Lightning right now. We're working on a credit and debit card integration. So soon you'll be able to spend with your credit or debit card and earn sats back, which is what a lot of users want to do. And we're actually toying around with the idea of turning on-chain. The reason isn't because it's technically very hard. It's mostly because there's a lot of customer support headaches. But yeah, that's how we differ from the gift card guys. And then Pay with Moon is one of the people kind of paving the way in the prepaid Visa card space. The big differentiator from us and them is that we offer international Visa cards to people outside of the United States, and their Visa cards can only be used in the US, but they've been around for a little bit longer. I think they allow like refunds off the card so you can claw back your funds, which we're working on. But those would be the main differences. I think there's another company, CoinDebit, that just popped up. And so, yeah, I mean, I can dive in, but credit to all these guys, Will, Sergey, like they've all been so helpful. The second you start touching traditional fiat, you have to start worrying about fraud and risk. And God knows I don't know much about that. And so they've kind of given me a lot of helpful hints and things along the way. So it's been nice to be on like the same team. And I don't know, man, selling gift cards is kind of a hack, but it's really fun to give Bitcoin back to our users. I mean, it's super cool.
That's super interesting. I think in almost any other business environment, you would be just extreme competitors with anyone that was doing a similar style thing. I think it's really interesting that, in the Bitcoin space, the people that you mentioned and most people are actively trying to increase Bitcoin adoption. And so they're more willing to collaborate. I just think that's an unusual and very cool environment to be in.
And I think like everyone's developing their own little niche. Like, Pay with Moon, I think is probably working on cards in other countries, but like, Fold started, I think, as a Bitcoin pizza company and then moved into gift cards. And then they really found their niche with the Visa debit cards. That's a fantastic product. Bit Refill, I think they were one of the first to do phone top-ups. So, I also don't really see us as major competitors. Our goal is to like collapse all of these rewards products down into one super app. So no matter what you want, you'll be able to get it with our app. If you want to buy Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, if you want a bank account where you can direct deposit, if you want to buy a gift card or link your cards and earn Bitcoin back, like our goal is to be the one-stop shop. Whereas everyone else is kind of like seemingly hyper focusing on their vertical. And that gets me shit sometimes. We have a big vision, a big plan, but at the end of the day, like I'm kind of got sick of like having a different app for a debit card, a different app for gift cards, a different app for my exchange, and a different app for my bank. I think the way to really, move people towards a Bitcoin standard is to give them all the things they actually, most people kind of need in their day-to-day life from fiat banking, and then just layer in as many Bitcoin things as we can to make the experience much better. Like, God forbid you actually have to send a wire these days. It's like a miserable experience. And I think pretty soon there's going to be enough like neobanks and Bitcoin friendly applications in these hyper localized regions that like you'll be able to, move money and move funds outside the traditional system. But until then, we kind of have to build like alongside it. At least that's our thesis is, my mom, she needs to write a check every once in a while. She gets paid in fiat. Someone like me, I can live off Bitcoin because of these Visa cards, but it's going to be like more of a gradual transition than I think most, Bitcoin maxis want. I would love tomorrow if all the banks were gone and all the payment networks were gone and we're all using Lightning and all the merchants could accept my payments. But the reality is this, like, that's not the case. So we're gonna try and like slowly transition consumers that way. And then there's other companies like Strike and, OpenNode and others that are working on the other side of the equation with merchants. And I think together, we'll bring the consumers, they'll bring the merchants, and eventually we can move towards that like vision of a reality where it's Bitcoin only. But banking it plays a pretty strong role in today's society. I mean, imagine most Bitcoiners have bank accounts and use cards. And so we just want to make sure that no matter how you want to use money or send money, we give you that option.
Can we, I want to separate something, because one thing that I think you guys, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, the thing that you guys are really pushing forward and pushing through is Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. And, there is a conversation still going on about the difference between a store of value and medium of exchange. I'm curious if you think that there is merit in waiting for Bitcoin itself to be a tried and true store of value before we really go down this lane of medium of exchange. And the only reason I asked this, and it popped up, shout out BTC Sessions, who's in the audience right now. Like, his story of he was paid 2 Bitcoin to live off of. And it's like, well, fuck, that was 8-9 years ago. If only you had known what that would be worth now. Or I think it was like maybe 10 or some amount of Bitcoin that, as you look back 5-10 years back, you're like, well, fuck, probably could have just gotten away with using cash. My fear, and like why I definitely am at the side of like, I'll buy my gift card through you so you can give me Bitcoin, but living off of my Bitcoin right now feels like I'm just inevitably going to kick myself in 10 years time when I'm like, well, fuck, did I really spend 0.01 Bitcoin at 40K a Bitcoin? So I'm curious your thoughts on that and how you try to hedge that.
I think the opportunity cost of not holding Bitcoin, it's easy to look back and say, damn, I spent Bitcoin at 8K, or I spent Bitcoin at 3K or $20. Reality is Bitcoin is the best store of value I think mankind has ever seen. I mean, it has volatility, and that's obviously, not to be taken lightly if you're living day to day off it. But I mean, go look at the chart, zoom out a little bit. It's holding value pretty darn well, and it's increasing in value. And so I think, like, if 3 months ago you spent your Bitcoin to acquire something, you look like a really smart trader. You spent Bitcoin at the top, and you got your goods and services for much cheaper in Bitcoin terms than they are today. My good friend Gigi is always the one who's saying, is like, anyone that tells you they think they know what the price is going to do in the short term is crazy. I think the only way is to dollar cost average. So like most Bitcoiners, I think, are still probably getting paid in fiat. And I think that's the safest way to expose yourself, is just, buy a little bit whenever you have savings. And I think it's like our responsibility to promote, a circular economy. If we want Bitcoin to progress like most money does, from collectibles to store of value to means of exchange, someone has to exchange it. That being said, I understand that the thesis behind like hodling. I understand like the case behind spend and replace, but I really enjoy like supporting companies, supporting people, supporting artists, trying to show merchants like that people are actually out here spending. So yeah, I think there's something to be said, but like, if you made that case 3 months ago, you were wrong. You like one funny story is when we raised money for our company, we raised mostly cash, and then the last 2 investors asked to give Bitcoin to us. And so we said, sure. We sold we sold equity in our company for 2 Bitcoin, but we sold the fucking top, dude. Like we sold our equity at 60K a Bitcoin, immediately lost a bunch of money. And so, looking back, that was a mistake. But then you have other stories like SuredBits, who raised, I think a couple hundred Bitcoin back in the day, and now they look like geniuses. I think you can point to stories in either direction. My big thing is like, when Bitcoin moves, it moves fast. And if you are overexposed to fiat and you're not holding Bitcoin, maybe because you are trying to spend fiat or something, you're going to regret that. I don't think Laszlo to this day probably really regrets buying his Bitcoin pizza. I think it was probably a cool thing for him, and it was the first transaction ever. So it's just the progression of money. If we want it to be real, we have to help make it real. But that doesn't mean I'm not sitting on Bitcoin that I'm saving. I just when I have the option to spend it, I try to.
And just to be clear, when you say you're sitting on Bitcoin, I mean, my understanding was that you lost it in that that freak abalone diving accident recently. You and I were deep in the we were doing free diving. We were about 100 feet down. Our eardrums had popped. Blood was coming out of my ear because the pressure was too great, and you had your seed phrase just attached to your belt loop like you normally do, just for security to make sure it's always on your person. And an abalone just reached out and grabbed it. They can do that. Not all people know that.
There were the sharks that day were pretty intimidating. It got my mind distracted. And yeah, it's all gone actually. So I guess I'll be using the credit card feature on my app from now on.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
What are the biggest challenges that you have, had to overcome or are currently struggling with when it comes to both starting a Bitcoin company and then specifically within the domain that you're currently operating in?
Sorry, the question was, what are the biggest challenges?
Yeah, like what have been the things that that have caused the most like consternation, or you've had to spend the most energy trying to address or solve? What are the biggest challenges for you?
Hands down, working with Fiat. We have Lightning working. We could get on chain working. Bitcoin works like a charm. Carman's always telling me this. Is like he's really only ever built on top of Bitcoin. It just works. But we're we're integrating with Fig right now for card linked offers. We've been working on a checkout.com like debit and credit card integration for 2 months now, and we started to slowly beta test it, but then you have to deal with all these things like fraud and chargebacks. So now we're gonna have to integrate like Sardine or SIF Science or like a bunch of fraud and risk tooling. Eventually we're working to roll out the ability to send money to our exchange so we can hold dollars for you. We can potentially buy Bitcoin. That means we have to integrate with Plaid. It means we need to get our money transmitter licenses or partner with a bank or trust that will have the ability to do that for us, which means I have to go spend $50,000, $100,000 something on legal and regulatory documents. It's fiat, man. Touching fiat is the fucking worst. But we kind of need to do it in order to bring more people into the Bitcoin fold. At least that's our thesis. There are plenty of Bitcoin only apps, and my mom doesn't use them. So what we're trying to do is actually build that bridge and do it in a way where we don't sell out like a lot of the fiat companies that are working in Bitcoin or crypto today do. But it's by far the biggest challenge, both from a monetary drain to our partners' APIs not working to just all the documentation and BS we have to deal with. It's fiat is just a nightmare. And it's different. That's just in the US. I was highlighting our US stuff, but the second I want to go do something in Canada or God forbid, Nigeria or Mexico or the EU is a nightmare right now. The UK is even worse. It's a whole different set of legal and regulatory stuff that we have to deal with. So there is no global solution. Everyone's when cards that work everywhere, and we did the best we could with these international Visa cards, but you can't actually launch a Visa card program in every territory. Visa itself divides into 5 or 6 different regions, everything with the different licenses, different issuing banks. It's just a nightmare, and that's how it still exists. It became behemoth due to regulatory moat. These banks make it harder and harder to compete with them. They make it more and more expensive. And every time they fuck up, they pay off politicians to add even more regulation. Lightning just works. Bitcoin just works. And it's beautiful to work with. But yeah, fiat sucks, man.
Tell us how you really feel. There was something that you said, and then P, I will let you continue, but I just want to highlight, I love the barometer that you use of my mom doesn't use these other apps. And I think that's so true because it's for all of us who are entrenched in this and spend our day to day, in the weeds, understanding what's good, what's bad, which products fit my needs, what products fit my family or my friends' needs. The average person doesn't do that. And lo and behold, your parents and generations above us, sure as shit, ain't going to do anything beyond what we just tell them to do. So I love that. There's an old Colin Cowherd quote where he was like, you're not really famous unless my mom knows who you are without me having to tell her who you are. So I digress.
Cowherd, that's the sports guy, right?
Yeah.
That's throwback.
P, I turn it back to you.
No, I mean, I think it was
Yeah, I'll add, like, I do think we call them at our company, we call them pre-coiners. We kind of have different categories. There's no coiners. That's like the Peter Schiffs of the world. Maybe even like, well, I'm not going to name any other names, but people who are just like inherently biased against Bitcoin. Then there's pre-coiners. Those are people who either don't know about Bitcoin or who are open to it. That is really our target market. Right now, we started building for Bitcoiners. I'm a Bitcoiner, you're a Bitcoiner. I think you get a lot of use out of our app, but like from a quote unquote, VC fundraising perspective, that market is tiny. Not that many people use Bitcoin, right now, when you compare it to something like the banking system or cash or Visa. And so what we really need to do is convert the 90% of people who are open to Bitcoin, who aren't anti-Bitcoin. And we need to show them that it can be used. It is easier than the traditional financial system. And so that really is who TBC is built for. We do have products built for cypherpunks and built for Bitcoiners. But if we do our job right, it's going to be converting as many of that kind of 90% of the market who just doesn't know yet. We really think they need help. And without us and without Bitcoin and without all these other people kind of building tools that are, far easier nowadays to use than they were in the past, like with command line and stuff, like they're going to be really fucked. And so hopefully we can help as many people kind of opt out as possible. And there's kind of a meme within the company is built for Sharon. So if she can actually, if it's easy enough for Sharon to use, it's easy enough for just about anybody to use. So that should be.
Who the fuck is Sharon?
Sharon's my mom. Shout out.
Oh, that's I love that so much.
Her username in our app is Hodl Mama. She thinks she started learning this like Bitcoin terminology. She always runs around when I have Bitcoin friends around and tells them she stacks sats and stuff. It's actually kind of funny, but so we really, like, I do a lot of user testing with her. But shout out to all the people actually building like easier ways to use non-custodial things. So because TBC right now is custodial, I think we're going to progress towards a UX friendly non-custodial option. So I think there are some solutions, but like, God, my mom trying to set up a seed phrase, like I can't imagine her etching in 24 words into a seed plate and burying it in the backyard, or like, God forbid, doing a multi-sig. Maybe with like Sparrow or Unchained with some of these solutions that are getting better and better, but we still got a lot of work to do. It's by far easier to use custodial options now. There's other really cool stuff like Fediment coming out that kind of bridge the gap to second party custody rather than third party custody. But it's we need to close that gap between custodial and non-custodial. I would much prefer to be non-custodial, but I just don't quite think the UX is there yet to bring on everyone who's just come to expect to log into their bank account with a username and password. There are some solutions, like we're looking into a couple, like 2 or 3 like key options. I think MPC opens up some doors. There's just one app that I really like the UX for called Zengo. It's a total shitcoin wallet, so don't use it. But their onboarding experience is really interesting. There's a key on your phone, there's a key in the cloud that's encrypted, and then they hold a key, and it avoids the need for the 24-word seed phrase, which I just think is kind of a non-starter when onboarding on newbies. So hopefully we can keep progressing towards better UX options that allow companies like me who start custodial to move towards a less regulated non-custodial option.
Yeah, I mean, when I onboarded my parents, I explained to them my just rock solid key management strategy, which is I have a multi-sig set up, and a lot of people like to do sort of multi-manufacturer, multi-jurisdictional multi-sig. What I do is I actually I have 3 different animals: one by land, by sea, and by air. So I've actually captured a cheetah, a tiger seal, and then a golden eagle, and I attached each of the seed phrases to them, and then I release them. And my belief is when I've earned my Bitcoin, they will come back to me, and then I'll be able to spend it. But I feel like that's a pretty effective strategy.
These animals have predators. What if someone releases like a whale shark or something and eats your tiger seal, whatever that is?
It's a great question. The power of Bitcoin will actually protect them. It creates a sort of force field around them that that makes them impervious to all predatory attacks.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And I've lost all my Bitcoin. I just got an alert. They're dead. They're gone. It's I fucked up. All my Bitcoin's gone.
Yeah, I guess someone made up a good point. You only need 2 of the 3 to stay alive. So that's always another option there.
The
Also,
golden eagle.
What eats eagles?
The golden eagle and the tiger seal are still in play. The cheetah got taken out by a poacher.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say. I think I don't know what a tiger seal is, but I don't think does an eagle have any natural predators?
Ben, the mistake you're making right now is you're entertaining this conversation.
Yo, shut up, Q. I got this. Look, golden eagles are the most majestic creatures ever known to man. They build nests. They raise their young. They're the symbol of America. What more do you need to know, my friend?
Why not a honey badger?
Honey badgers do not exist natively in this country. To be honest, neither do cheetahs or tiger seals, but we're going to put that aside for right now because this is a hypothetical situation.
I'm down to import some honey badgers, though, and let them start taking over. That happens all over the place, right? Like that's why
there may or may not have been a conversation around could we import honey badgers to Bitcoin 2022, and I had to put the kibosh on. I had to put the kibosh on it.
Shouldn't be here. Like I'm pretty sure there's a honey badger somewhere in the U.S.
It's true. So
I'm like really bummed Tony's gone. I think he would have a lot to say about.
I know. Me too. I'm
privacy and conversation stuff. He and I had a really good discussion in Nashville about Fediment and how like a centralized exchange like us could potentially leverage something like that to at least enhance privacy off the platform after our users, withdraw. I want to, I'm bummed out, but it sounds. I think he's coming home to Austin, so I'm excited to see him. I'll take that loss.
Yeah, he basically was like, yeah, no, I said I'd be in a good situation, but I'm driving right now. And we were like, God damn it. But next time, you'll have to come back on when we finally do have him on, and we'll go through it. So I'm actually really curious. Can you go into more of the detail around how Fediment could potentially integrate with the Bitcoin company?
So, yeah, I don't want to. This is where I really wish Tony or Justin Moon or someone was around. Maybe I'll pull in Carman. But our goal as a company was always to kind of fight for our users. So while we are going to have a custodial exchange, and that necessitates, unfortunately, KYC and a bunch of tooling because we're going to allow you to move dollars over to your account and buy Bitcoin. So we have to kind of do KYC on the way in. However, we've always, like Carmen and I have always been talking about how do we help our users preserve privacy on the way out? Like, sure, we know P, who works at Bitcoin Magazine, gets his money legally, so he can legally buy Bitcoin from us. But I don't want to know shit about your Bitcoin addresses after that. I don't want to know where you withdrew. I don't want to know what you spent your money on. I don't care. And so we've been talking through. Carman is working on a few tools, including Vortex. He's one of the smartest people in the world and actually understands the cryptography behind coin joins and stuff. So we were always talking about coin joins off the platform, or essentially blinded withdrawals, where even though we will know, these 10 users withdrew off the platform at, on day X during this batch of transactions, we wouldn't actually know which withdrawal address was specifically yours. And so that's like similar to a coin or a collaborative transaction off of the exchange. So, we know these 10 people are part of it. We don't know where the money went after that. And so when a government official tries to give me a subpoena and say, whose address, where did P withdraw to? I say, I don't know. It's one of these 10 addresses, but I'm not going to dox all my users. But it's really not an ideal situation. And so an alternative is something like Fediment, which it allows you to kind of like peg in. It allows you to send your Bitcoin to a federation. And in return, you get a token that is kind of like anonymized and fungible with anyone else who deposits Bitcoin. A little bit like a casino chip or something in Las Vegas. If you sit down, you put your money on the table, and you get $100 poker chip or $100 craps chip, and it looks just like everyone's around the table. And then you go cash it out at the cashier, and they don't know if you handed this chip, you got this chip from your friend, if you got it from the table. I mean, they probably know because they're watching you. But at the end of the day, you get this anonymized, fungible token that you can then later redeem and withdraw, Bitcoin from. And so the user flow that we were thinking was, instead of P coming to our exchange and withdrawing 5 Bitcoin, ideally we could do some sort of blinded withdrawal or collaborative transaction, and we would know P is maybe one of these 100 addresses. What we could do is we could actually allow you to withdraw straight to, or deposit or withdraw, I don't know how you would explain it, but we would give you like a Fediment token. And you would then, at a later time, you could trade it with someone off the platform. You could hold it for years. At any point, you can go back to that federation and withdraw actual Bitcoin. And we, as the exchange, have no idea. Like you could do that 5 seconds. You probably have to avoid some withdrawing the same amount right away to avoid timing analysis. But it would at least let us give you a anonymized version of like Bitcoin, which then you later withdraw to your own personal wallet, or I don't care, some other platform. And we would have no insight whatsoever. So that's something that I think has a lot of promise. There's obviously trade-offs and risks, but I think as a user, if you're already working with a centralized exchange, there's kind of like inherently less trust with, well, I guess about the same amount of trust, but you at least get to pick who it's with. So I do think like you really want to break the connection between any centralized exchanges and, you want to withdraw your Bitcoin and keep it off platform, or else, companies like Coinbase and Chainalysis and all these people start popping up and selling your data to the government. If you can break that connection, then you essentially render those Chainalysis companies useless. Hopefully that was a decent explanation.
No, totally made sense. Where do you see Bitcoin adoption going in the United States? I think before you jumped in, I was talking about how, in so many other countries, so many other parts of the world where people have experienced, hyperinflation, have experienced, bail-ins, like in Venezuela, where the government just says like, oh shit, like we're just taking everything above a certain amount from your bank account and we're just using it to inflate our own coffers. Go fuck yourself. In places like that, they immediately or very quickly kind of grok what Bitcoin is and the opportunity that it provides. Whereas in the US, you have to explain to someone like, well, here's why it's important to, disintermediate this process. Here's why it's important to not have a bank or a government basically arbitrarily placed in between you and the financial transactions that you might want to conduct. What do you think the path for massive Bitcoin adoption in the United States is? I mean, I think the Bitcoin company, what you are doing is obviously a massive part of that, but what about like more broadly? What do you think it's going to take for people to adopt Bitcoin and understand at a significant level or significant amount of the populace what Bitcoin is and why it's important?
Honestly, it's probably going to take a lot of pain, man. I think everyone, a quote I love is everyone kind of finds Bitcoin when they deserve it. But it's also different for everyone. Like you said, people in Venezuela, Lebanon, hyperinflating countries, it's really easy to understand the value prop of Bitcoin. And oftentimes it's the fact that it's scarce. It cannot be printed. In other places, if you're in China or North Korea, it's probably not the scarcity that matters most to you. Yeah, that's a cool property, but it's the censorship resistance. In the United States, maybe it's the fact that it's borderless. I can send it overseas. Maybe, but like for someone like me, I'm not actually sending remittances home to my family members. For me, but it's kind of like, I hate the banks. It's about kind of financial sovereignty and freedom and opting out. But I also I never want to send a wire again. I actually want to support Bitcoiners. So it's really interesting how Bitcoin is different for everyone. You kind of have to frame it differently. And so I think in the United States, it might just take, all fiat currencies fail. No government has ever shown the ability to stop printing and prevent hyperinflation of fiat currency. It will happen with the US dollar. Yes, we happen to have, one of the more strong currencies in the world, but it's gonna happen. We've printed, I don't know the stat, it changes all the time, but it's something like 70 or 80% of all dollars have been printed in the last 2 years or something. Prices are skyrocketing. I don't care what the inflation numbers say. Like, everything is so damn expensive, man. I bought a coffee in Nashville for $10.50 the other day. Like, you can't avoid it. And I think,
Did it
like,
cure cancer?
no, it wasn't even very good. It was from this fucking place. It had a cool hat, but no, it did not cure cancer. It was just expensive ass coffee, and not to mention housing, like cars, like everything is just so costly. And I think maybe that's just what it's going to take in these kind of first world shielded countries, is like the financial markets are probably going to collapse. People are going to go from upper class to middle class and middle class to lower class. And they're going to be looking, when the dollar does continue to, deflate or inflate, and when their salaries don't go up, but all of their food and all their goods and services continue to increase in price, people are going to start noticing something's wrong. And I think at that point is when you will start to see people looking for an alternative asset. Now, traditionally, that's been, if you're fortunate enough to be able to afford it, it's been stocks and real estate. But Bitcoin is for everyone. Like, you can buy a tiny bit of it. And so I think, like, lower class, middle class, and upper class will all see it as an opportunity to escape the dollar, to escape a collapsing housing market or a collapsing asset market, and at least find something. Yes, it might be a little volatile. Yes, Bitcoin often sells off in correlation during short-term sell-offs and issues with the market, but long-term it holds its value far better than anything. And I think when you're specifically talking about countries that are quote unquote like strong in the international global markets of fiat and forex, like it might just take some time, dude. Like it will come like that. Here we are, Christine Lagarde. Like the pain is coming, and I'm hoping companies like us can help inform as many people and help people opt out easily. But it's a tougher pitch, man. Like you don't have to tell someone in Venezuela why they should buy Bitcoin. They know, they've been through it. People in the States are going to need to have very easy options, like handed on a platter. I think stuff like what Strike is doing, stuff that makes it spendable and tangible, help. But like a max exodus towards Bitcoin, it's just a different pitch in the US, I think. I don't know if that answered your question. I'm kind of ranting.
Rant away, my friend. You are in a safe space to really share how you feel of all these matters. We could keep going down this rabbit hole. It breaks my heart to hear how expensive Nashville has come into, and I just had to quickly cross that off of the list of where I'm going to live in the next 12 months. So
no, I like
that. Get in here.
I was in
Get your ass to Nashville.
Very bougie part of town, so maybe that plays into it. East Nashville, I really love East Nashville. I was in kind of what felt like the Georgetown of Nashville. This hat, it's got my initials, so I wanted to buy it, but it was $66. Like, it's ridiculous, man. Like, I was at an old shop that had all these cards from, like, you were born in 1971 or you were born in 1983, and they told the president and they told the price of goods, and like I think in 71, like or like even 93, like a Nissan Altima was $5,000 brand new. Like, these things aren't normal. The fact that people are comfortable paying $8 a coffee, it's just like we're all freaking brainwashed. Like, people my age were never born into a world where they even understood hard money, or like that prices shouldn't just go up in value arbitrarily, and inflation shouldn't have a target of 2%. So I think like people have become accustomed to this and this lifestyle, and it's really sad to see, because there are a few people behind the scenes pulling all the strings, and it's just kind of messed up, man. So unfortunately, I think I'll get back to it. Like it's going to be painful for a lot of people before they realize like they need to find a solution, but it's there. That's like the silver lining is at any point people can opt out.
But will they is the question. I want to know, like, what are the conversations that you're having with businesses around Bitcoin? Are they like, oh my God, thank God you're here. Like, we've been trying to figure out a way to get involved. Or is it like, fuck off. Like, I don't need Bitcoin. Bitcoin needs me. Like, go away. What are you going to give us if we start doing, like, what is that relationship with merchants right now?
It's hit or miss. So we do have a feature on our app where we've started to sell gift cards or event tickets for third-party platforms. And so I've just started kind of warming up the salesman in me, going around talking to merchants, trying to see if we can get them on the platform. So like credit, I think Bitcoin 2023 tickets are in there, Baltic Honey Badger tickets. We're trying to at least start with all the Bitcoin brands who really understand the value prop of a user base like ours with thousands of Bitcoiners on it who want to attend conferences or want to, I'm talking to Parker Lewis later today about hopefully getting their IRA product in our application for rewards. Those are easy sells. Bitcoiners, we all understand it. And there's like an overlap of our user base with people that be interested. Then there's kind of the ancillary merchants, people like KNC Cattle here in Austin, Texas. A fantastic Bitcoiner himself, but also there's this weird overlapping like carnivore kind of meat eating subsect of Bitcoiners. And so again, those kind of people, it's pretty easy. However, I was just down at Royal Blue Grocery getting my coffee, and I gave them the pitch, and they didn't give a shit, man. I think it's going to take like either native. They just don't want to work. Like I don't think it has anything to do with Bitcoin, but it's like me going in there and trying to tell them, switch your point of sale to mine. Like it's just a huge pain, and it all kind of works right now to a degree. So you really have to highlight either you're bringing users to them, you're bringing some sort of value to them. The thing is you are. So what most merchants kind of assume and take for granted is that most of their customers are going to pay with Visa or MasterCard or Amex. What happens when you swipe and buy $100 worth of crap at your local store is they walk away with $96, $97 of that, and the rest goes to the banks and it goes to the payment networks. On top of the fact that they are already paying, roughly 2.5% or 3% just to swipe your piece of plastic and take your money, they have to deal with fraud and chargebacks and delayed settlement. So they don't get to see the money right away. Then, I can go buy my crap at their store and tell my bank it wasn't me, and they're the ones that are going to lose the money on that. And sometimes it's friendly fraud, sometimes it's an intentional fraud. Like for companies like mine who sell digital goods online, it's fraught with like kind of scammers. But one of the big things is you don't have money in hand either. So you have delayed settlement. You have to figure out a way to like, provide working capital to your own business before you get paid out. And then you're also losing 3% on every dollar you're accepting. And so there's a built-in pitch there for 3 to 4% of your bottom line. If you can get users to accept Bitcoin or to pay in Bitcoin, that's money straight back into your pocket. We've sold hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gift cards, and it was all for Lightning so far. But had I accepted that same amount of money and my users all paid Visa or MasterCard, I'd have about $20,000 less in money right now. I'd have about probably 1,000 cases of fraud where we just lose gift cards and the users kind of charge it back. And so the pitch is there. I just think like we really need to bring more users into the market. Kind of to your point earlier, like if no one's trying to spend Bitcoin, then no merchants are going to want to accept it, because to be frank, it's not the easiest thing in the world to accept right now. And most merchants, they can't hold Bitcoin. They actually have to convert it to something a little bit less volatile. Usually margins are low. Like imagine being a gas station accepting Bitcoin where you're making 1% on your gas and then Bitcoin falls 4% that day. It's not doable, which is why companies that kind of like IBEX or OpenNode or even Strike, I think, that are making it as easy as possible for a merchant to accept Bitcoin, but kind of hedge their way into a less volatile asset, that's probably the intermediary step. Then there will be companies that go out and partner with payment gateways, payment processors, point of sale systems that make it a one-click integration. And then eventually merchants will start realizing, why am I paying 1% to OpenNode? Why am I paying 1% to Strike? Hopefully, Rockstar and the team can get BTC Pay Server, or Nick Dorian can get BTC Pay Server working, or some of these kind of more sovereign ways to accept payments as easy to use as possible. I think like it's going to be a slow, steady progression, but it is a hard pitch going into really any merchant store and getting them to switch over, which is why we've had success kind of like hacking around it with gift cards or promo codes and stuff. Like these natively integrate with people's existing purchase flows, which is why we were able to turn it on for so many people so fast. We don't really have to pitch them to do anything other than give us a list of 10 gift cards that they'll accept at their store. And so it's kind of easing them their way into it. And then maybe we start upselling them on a merchant acceptance business or something. But yeah, it's tough. I think the most scalable way to do it is target the gateways, the payment processors, the point of sale systems if you really want to hit scale. But hopefully more and more merchants opt out, start running their own sovereign hardware. Maybe it's Voltage, maybe it's BTC Pay, or whatever. So it's slow and steady. People like Michael Atwood are doing the Lord's work because it's not an easy pitch.
So a couple things, Ben. We respect and know how hard you work. Can you turn off your fucking Slack messages for 30 more minutes? And then Chris, we have actually finally gotten to 100 likes while we are live on air. Could we get a little SATS code, carrot code to give to the audience over on YouTube, please? Thank you, sir.
You're asking P or you're asking P?
No, I was asking Chris, producer.
You can type in love to the TBC app and get 100 sats for free as well. There's a redeem code there. We might be able to spin up something else here after this.
Boom.
Fuck yes, let's go.
You guys just got generational wealth from Ben. Like, everyone needs to slide in his DMs, tell him how grateful they are, and tell him 3 things that they like about him. Everyone has to DM him who's watching.
Just do it to Ben Carr, man. My DMs are I'm full of Tron scams right now, so it's gonna be hard to sort through all the numbers.
Dude, these scam accounts are honestly like, it's gotten so creative now. To a degree.
Like, I was walking down the street and I saw a bag of puppies drowning in a small lake, and I jumped in to save them. And then I had a Tron wallet, and can you help me get my Tron off my wallet so I can buy BTC? It's just like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Dude, I mean, that one specifically has been blowing up more than any I've ever seen. It must be working. I imagine that's why I get 10 messages like that a day, but it's really unreal. I'm not that popular, so they must be taking all sorts of people's money with that.
Yeah,
maybe
it's just
students who don't know how to use Tron USDT. Maybe they're all calling
they're all
I was about to
real.
ask,
We're just
what
like,
if-
fuck you, and they're just like, please, sir, help me.
Just help
Why do
me.
you hate me?
Guys, I listen to Bitcoin Magazine all the time. I'm trying to do what you tell me. Help.
Oh,
I mean,
Jesus.
look, if someone's sending me their fucking key phrase and their wallet number, like, no.
No, you know how that scam works, though, right? They send you the thing, you log in, you see that there's actually funds there. Ben's literally about to send Tron to somebody, and then in order to move it,
to get my carrot stats here. Hell yeah!
oh fucking get it,
Shit,
do it,
dude,
live,
Ben's gonna
live,
beat you
live.
guys. You guys better get that code before Ben gets it.
That was me trying to dab.
Thanks, Flip.
Hell yeah,
He's still running that, right?
yeah.
Shout
Hell
out
yeah,
the Carrot team.
killing it.
683.
Flip out here,
J8.
cash
Oh,
and
it's
checks and
multi-use.
snapping necks.
Let's go.
I just
Sorry,
can't believe
Pete.
you paid $66 for a hat. I'm still reeling.
It's got a Bitcoin person initials. I had to do it. Honestly, I wanted to slap the barista in the face. Like he told me it was $66 and then just walked away because I'm pretty sure he just assumed I wasn't going to buy it. But at that point, I was with Tony. I committed. I walked in to buy a hat, and I had to get it. So, had I done
Tony
it
would have
for-
called you a little bitch if you didn't buy it. You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
honestly,
fair. That's
probably
fair.
would have. Honestly, it's felt. It's like it's terrible for the summer, but when you see your initials on a hat, you got to buy it, right? That's the law.
I mean, you're talking to 2 guys who literally go by a single letter, and I could tell you with a straight face that I own nothing with the letter Q on it.
I have a hat with the letter Q on it.
Yeah, that sounds like a you problem, Q.
I kind of want that hat now.
Someone asked
So
me.
wait,
I was
Ben,
wearing
Ben.
Someone asked me if it was a Quiznos hat, but
That's hot.
I don't actually know. I think it's a brand called Quasi, but I have a weird head. Not many hats fit me, so if I find one of any letters, I buy it usually.
So, quick question for you. You know, Q and I, we do the show together. We've been trying to figure out, like, okay, what is the funniest name that we could call, you know, this segment. So we've got, you know, 2 guys, 1 letter, right? Clearly a reference to the documentary film 2 Girls, 1 Cup. Or
Hey,
we could.
I'm not sure what that is.
Oh, you should look it up after the show. Just go check it out. You know, the other option is mind your P's and Q's, or just go fuck yourself.
This is like a play on your guys' names.
Yeah, why not?
This is what P does in his free time.
Yeah.
Me,
What
I
I
read the
do,
news.
you're the one who's like, yo, we gotta leverage this fucking brand. Anyway, the
I
point
mean,
is,
look,
A,
did
B, or
I-
C.
Did I call Warner Music and ask them how much for the rights for Mind Your P's and Q's?
Well, that's good. There's a play here. I mean, I'm not sure. We were talking about Amsterdam earlier. There's like the QP. That's a standard weight of measurement in some industries.
Which ones? Which ones?
The Amsterdam ones.
Mm.
I like mind your P's and Q's, but is that
I
a
kind of
play
like a
on-
quarter pounder. Like, there's a lot to do with a quarter pounder. Like, we could go the McDonald's route. We could also go the quarter pound of weed route. Like, QP is on the table. P is just secretly try to get his letter in front of mine. And like
No,
the
I think
only
it's
place
way
that
better to have
belongs.
Q and then P. It's got to be.
Oh, fuck you.
I like QP. The QP.
Look, man, I went from being the last letter on this name card to having every name before me finally knocked off. If you want first billing on the title card, you're going to have to take that up with my agent.
This is where you pull out a card and it's just your name. You're like, here's my agent, and it's just Q. All right.
Yes.
You guys, you struggle. Like, there's just so many damn bends, and we're all fungible. Like, we don't talk about things like this. I don't.
Dude, one of my favorite parts of Bitcoin 2022 was, I think, when you were on stage and there was like a whole contingent of people with like signs in the audience.
Yeah, I might have staged an uprising. It was actually TFTC, and the Bitcoin company booth was handing out "I stand with Ben" signs all afternoon, coordinating,
was.
scheduling a coordinated attack. Unfortunately, Skeef got into it and converted a lot of people to fuck the Bens, and so
Those are the signs that I saw.
Yeah, we had a good division there. But you need all good people need an enemy. So it worked. But mostly we broke up the Matt and Marty show, which was the real important part there.
Well, that was very necessary, but you've now segued me into the question I was going to save for the final 15, but we're going to make it the final 22. P decided to be cool. Wow, the room. Based on the reflection, I can now see your whole setup, and I can see how terrible your setup is. By the way, Ben, I need your power ranking of the top 5 Bens in Bitcoin.
No.
Or the
All
Bens
Bens
of
are
Bitcoin.
fungible, man. All Bens are fungible.
Right, but what is your power ranking list?
Oh, you're gonna get me in trouble.
That's right.
I'm
That's what we're
trying
here
to
for.
because if I wanted to not get you in trouble, I would say you have to keep yourself off. But I actually want to see where you rank yourself.
Oh, I'm not on the top. You gotta stay humble, dude. I also genuinely like. So for the people who don't know, and if you're listening to this, you probably do. Like, there is a stupid amount of Bens working in Bitcoin, and it's not just like Bens who happen to be fans. It's people like like core developers, people running businesses. Like, it's statistically significant, I think, how many Bens there are that are actively playing like a positive and significant role. So I'll give it to Carman. Carman's the best Ben, hands down. Now, I will caveat, all Bens are created equal. All Bens are fungible. Carman's the best Ben. He's my co-founder. We wouldn't be here without him. So he's the one that's building all these tools, giving you free sats back. I don't know that I can name a top 5. I might have to tweet it out or something, get back to you later. But there's a few that come to mind that would be in the top, like Ben Woosley. Ben Ark is always building cool shit. He had like a little like pay with lightning. What do you call it? One of those claw grabbers at the Oslo Freedom Forum. Poor Ben Kaufman fell off the wagon. He was a great one, but he's kind of dabbling in some other stuff now. Yeah, I'm not gonna entertain this question. I think this is where I'm gonna censor myself here. I'm not gonna make enemies with my Bens. We have a council to run, man. We got the world.
This is a no censorship zone. No censorship is allowed, either of oneself or
We had another
one's-
Ben in the chat earlier, BTC Sessions. He's always
Yeah, I can't believe that was not a name that you even wanted to discuss. And let it be known to the Council of Bens that you have silenced Ben on our show, and we are coming for you now as a result.
Oh, Jesus. I do not stand behind this message, Q. This is a fight that you're going to have to fight alone. You're going to get crushed by the Bens. There's too many
I'm
of them.
gonna die.
They're too strong.
I welcome
They're too
death.
powerful.
I welcome death.
Fair enough.
I mean, what we forget to mention was at the conference, the whole reason there was a Ben contingent was because Carman got shooed by Marty. Like, they brought this on themselves. It wasn't just the Bens randomly attacking TFTC. It was the Bens defending Ben's honor. We will, like, we stand for
I'm defending your honor, man. I'm letting you speak. The Council of Bens is silencing you, so I'm defending.
Well, let me rate someone else. I'm not gonna shit talk my fellow.
All right. No more Ben ranking. Clearly, Ben Price, you're a coward and you won't stir the pot. I get it. I hear you.
Fine.
We see you. What's something that we haven't asked you about? Like, what is something that is taking up a lot of your headspace that you think about as it relates to Bitcoin?
Good question.
And you cannot say the size of your Bitcoin dick. Not an option.
I wouldn't have said that. That was
You texted it to me, so I mean,
that was private. Man, honestly, what's keeping me up at night is running this business. That's the number one thing. We're a venture funded startup, and that presents all sorts of challenges. It's that one's tough, and there's a lot of people that not only users around the world, but employees and people that I think rely on either us or the company to make a living. So that's genuinely what I spend most of my time thinking about, is how to push this company forward and bring Bitcoin to as many people as possible. But on a larger level, I've been talking a lot about Lightning privacy and Fediment with Tony Giorgio. I think where we want to push the needle more than most other companies in the space, and where I feel most passionate about, is privacy, even if you are running a centralized company. So trying to come up with interesting ways to either provide certain product lines that have lower KYC thresholds than something like a full centralized exchange, or ways to at least tangibly improve on the current model, like we were talking about, maybe Fediment, maybe collaborative transactions off a platform. That's been a lot of my time. Generally in the space, though, I think, I don't know, man, it's hard. Like, I used to do so much more reading. Lately, I've been trying to kind of expand my horizons a little bit. Like, I'm reading a book about the design of everyday things. I'm going back and reading more about the Fed, as opposed to like spending all my time reading about like technical Bitcoin concepts. And so I think like trying to become a more well-rounded Bitcoiner and polymath is really important. Some of my, like, Gigi's one of my favorite people to listen to or talk to, because he can talk everything from space travel to time bending, to actual physics and chemistry, to mathematics, to cryptography. And Bitcoin is like an amalgamation of all these, game theory, economics, psychology. It's like a mix of all these things. You can't just be a good coder and be a great Bitcoiner. You can probably be a good core dev, but you're not going to like understand the implications and the theses behind the thesis behind Bitcoin to its fullest potential. And so I think like becoming a better, more well-rounded person has kind of been at the top of my book. But even that gets put aside when there's like fires starting up every minute left and right with users. At the end of the day, we're running a company, and anytime a user has a bad experience, like it kind of personally personally hurts me. So we gotta try and clean that up, and then maybe I can go read my books again. I don't know. That's a tough question. I wish I was here with Carmen. He's got a lot of insights into like the actual technical happenings of Bitcoin and things that are staying up to date. I would say on the technical side though, thinking about Fediment and lightning privacy have been what I've spent most of my time talking about. And that's because I've spent a lot of time around like Tony lately.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Do you worry about anything going on in normie land as it would impact Bitcoin at all?
Man, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life was to really stop worrying about normie land. I think like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe that's an exaggeration, maybe it was 3 or something. I just stopped watching the news. I stopped listening to what mainstream thing was falling apart and on fire these days. It really just focused on either working or spending time with my friends, or just like it became so clear when I found Bitcoin that like everything has an agenda in normie land. And no, I'm really not too worried about it. I think other than the standard things like, how we can get Bitcoin into as many hands of these people who really, really desperately need it, that worries me a little bit. If we're talking like attacks on Bitcoin or threats to Bitcoin, I don't really think so. I think the best thing that anti-Bitcoin government could do is maybe slow it down. But it's unstoppable at this point. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not smart enough to understand some of these like intricate attack vectors, but I don't think it can be stopped. I think the cat's out of the bag. Governments can, like, the best way to stop it would be to stop printing money. They're not going to do that. Like that's off the table. Bitcoin probably wouldn't have been invented if governments actually responsibly, or like we stayed on the gold standard, or people responsibly, like who are in charge of the central banks, like didn't just print add like to infinity. But the reality is they will. The motivations and incentive model is to print more, and so there's always that. I think the best thing they could do is slow it down, and that worries me a little bit because I would really like to see this happen in my lifetime and happen as fast as possible, and say that I helped and was a part of it. But long term, zoom out enough, I think the game's over. There's like these long pauses after I talk every time.
No. I'm thinking deeply about it. That's, you and I have hung out a number of times, but I've never engaged you in like a super long form conversation. And I'm just like, damn, Ben has some good shit to say.
I don't know. I don't know, man. I think I've been lucky enough to find Bitcoin. I was definitely lost before this. I knew something was broken with the world. I kind of was into economics and game theory. Microeconomics always made sense. Macro was just ridiculous. And so finding Bitcoin was not only like a figuring out what at the core is kind of like wrong with the world. It introduced me to the fact that like I shift my focus, understanding that I think money is the core of all these problems. Like the world revolves around money. People work their entire lives to make money, to hopefully retire one day. Yeah, there's love and other things, but like money's very, very important. And at the core, money is broken. It's the one thing that holds us all together. It's universal, and it's rotten in every fucking country. And all of a sudden, there's this solution to this problem that we didn't think we had an answer to. And this problem that we didn't think we had an answer to is generating just so many second, third, fourth, fifth order layers of like issues with the world, whether it's politics or, I don't know, racism, you name it. Like, everything, I think to a degree is a symptom of the rotten money, the fact that it pays to be closer to the money spigot, and it pays to keep people out of competition with you with regulation. And Bitcoin fixes that core. It doesn't fix all problems, but it it at least allows you to work on something that fixes like the root of all evil. Like if you can layer over, you can paper over the issues with the world. Like I could start the world's biggest charity and feed as many people in the world as I wanted, but the world would still be rotten at its core if we were revolving around fiat money. Instead, we have a bunch of people now that kind of saw that, and we're working on actually healing ourselves from the inside out. And if we can save that core, then things will slowly start kind of emanating outwards, I think, and we'll slowly start to see these like symptoms that have become everyday, lifestyle that we've come to expect, like become better and better and better every day. And I don't know that I'm much of an optimist, but at least there's something we can all point to. There's something to work on that actually helps everyone in the world. Like before Bitcoin, there wasn't that. Like I said, you could feed as many homeless people as you want, but they're going to keep popping up left and right because the whole system is built to incentivize that. Like, yeah, I really owe a lot to Bitcoin. I don't even know what the question was, but that's something that I realize is like, it's one thing we can all work on that, even if it's a tiny bit, it helps every single person on this planet, rather than, maybe you do your job and you fix cars, and that's awesome. That really is a noble profession. But like, I was really hoping to do something more with my life, and finding Bitcoin and coming to that realization that like, this is the one thing that I think can tangibly make like a large scale difference. It meant a lot to me.
How did you get into Bitcoin initially? What's the story there?
Oh man. I was always very mathematical, I guess, as a kid. Really loved psychology, but I was always really good at math. And so when I got to college, I didn't really want to study math. I was sick of it. I didn't really want to study psychology because everyone studies psychology. And so I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always kind of knew that. My mom started a company, and I saw like kind of how cool that was. But my like real passion was math and econ, and the blend of that, I thought, like kind of this polymath combination of everything was economics. It was psychology, it was mathematics, it was game theory. And so I really went down like the game theory rabbit hole at college. Go Tar Heels. That was my school in North Carolina. And so going down, I learned microeconomics, which I wasn't taught this in high school. So I learned micro, really interesting, thought it made sense, individual people making choices based on what they prefer. And then learned macro. And again, it just made no fucking sense that, some guy was pulling all the levers and magically fixing things. Started finding game theory, which was really even a more like technical version of econ. So I think like my passion for econ was always there. But shit, man, I'm trying to remember the first touch point. Like I never heard about Bitcoin in college, I don't think. I think it was probably I moved to DC eventually, and I had one graphic designer on my team that I was working with who I think was into like, I don't know if it was Doge or what. I don't want to name a bunch of shit coins here because they're all shit. But it was something. It wasn't Bitcoin. And eventually, I was a big reader, and I think I eventually read the white paper, and like it almost clicked, but didn't quite click, and then started going down the rabbit hole. Luckily found TFTC and Stefan Livera pretty early on, and they helped steer me towards the kind of like the logic behind Bitcoin only. And then really, it was weird. My progression started completely as like podcasts, and the more and more that I'm in the space, the less and less I listen to podcasts. And the more I do like reading on ancillary subjects outside the space. But man, holy shit, did I listen to like so much audio content those first couple years. So a lot of credit to Ramsey for telling me about, I guess it was cryptocurrencies, but Stefan and TFTC set me on the right path. And so it's not to say I didn't have some painful experiences, but at least I saw the light pretty early on. And once I figured out Bitcoin only was the only way, and then started understanding more about proof of work and proof of stake, and luckily enough, I'm technical enough to understand these concepts, and Bitcoin's the only way. So I guess that was a terrible way to explain my Bitcoin journey, but it was always kind of meant to be there. I think with the econ deep inside me, with I guess the psychology blend, but came to it from that side of things.
I just wanted on record that Ben's inability to answer this question further validates the potential that he is in fact Satoshi Nakamoto. That is all.
No, there's a new theory. The new theory is Ben Carman is 45 years old. Actually, he's not as people think, and that he is in fact Satoshi Nakamoto. And it became my new favorite theory because I think I live with him, and I think it's perfectly plausible. Why not? He's certainly smart enough. But
you do know that P is 106 years old, right?
Apparently, I'm a Highlander. I'm like 2 years. I'm 2 years older than Q and Chris, which makes me
more than 2 years
an
older than us.
old ass man.
You are literally on the other side of 30.
That is true. That is true. Fair enough.
He did. Dude, things that P remembers as a not young man include Chernobyl's explosion,
the invention of hot dogs. I mean, who wasn't alive when hot dogs were invented?
The tearing down of the Berlin Wall, the moon landing, and 100%. Titanic sinking.
Yeah,
these happened when P was.
Come on, man. Anyone over the age of 30 remembers these things like it was yesterday. Come on. I don't know why you're bringing these things up.
Ben, I want to now ask you a couple of questions because we talked about it a little at the beginning. We're going to talk about it a little bit now at the end. You've already told us you think Amsterdam's too crowded, that you're going to do space cakes with me. But what is your favorite thing to do in Amsterdam?
Oh man, smoke pot.
Fuck yes, my guy. My guy.
So the first time I ever went to Amsterdam, I was in college, and it was before pot was legal, and so the whole point of going was to smoke pot. It's a wonder drug. It's fun. I remember going there, and we were smoking what they called American joints, which are just 100%
weed.
They're not mixed with tobacco, and they thought we were fucking crazy.
I love a good spliff. Oh, I can't wait for Amsterdam now.
Man. I think honestly, biking around, and hopefully the whole point, I think, for me, if I'm in somewhere like Amsterdam, is I'm on vacation. So my favorite thing to do, if I do end up going to Bitcoin 20 whatever in Amsterdam, is going to be hanging out with Bitcoiners, probably biking around, eating some fries with weird shit on it. I don't know, they have fries everywhere in Amsterdam.
Fuck with that. Fries,
but also
space cakes.
Depends who's there. I'm very careful about where I do kind of experiment with psychedelics, but that could be interesting. I think psilocybin is a really interesting drug in the sense that it at least for me personally, puts me into a state of mind that allows me to think in a way I would otherwise never be capable of thinking about. So I've had the biggest kind of life-changing experience of my life was the first time I took mushrooms. And it was when I was struggling with really, really caring about what a lot of other people, things were out of my control. I was getting upset about, and I'm not sure how well you guys know me now, but I try and keep a pretty level head. But at that, mushrooms allowed me to completely change my perception of how I viewed what other people thought of me, or it let me be at peace with things that were out of my control, and it freed up my mind in a way that changed my life entirely. And so, given that it's legal there, and there's a lot of great Bitcoiners that'll probably be there. Maybe that's a fun little experience we could try. But I got work to do, guys. I can't be doing shrooms and smoking pot all day. I'm not.
We're doing it in business meetings, Ben. It counts. It counts as
Q,
business.
you are not allowed to take shrooms while we're on the live desk. Or at least microdoses.
Fun fact,
maybe.
I took shrooms on
Microdoses.
our 420 stream. I literally ate shrooms and streamed on 420.
All right,
with
fair enough.
Big
You're a
Shane.
better man than me.
I just can't do that anymore, man. You don't. I'm not in my 20s anymore, and I don't recover like I used to.
Hey man, I'm on my last year of my 20s. Let me ride this fucking wave out with a bang, a glorious bang. I love. What
I just love
have to
imagining you
say.
like projectile vomiting all over the live desk, like in real time, like turning to Michael Saylor and being like, "So what do you?" Blah! And it's just like going everywhere. I'm here for it.
I will say though, I don't love super crowded cities. Don't love tourist traps, which is why I did recommend Leiden to everyone. It was somewhere I went backpacking a few years ago. It's got like all the benefits of Amsterdam. It's got all the canals. You can still be near water and sit near cafes and stuff. But it's like it's a smaller college town, much quieter. There's not a ton of tourists. So that's probably where I'll be, man. Like, shoot, I'm gonna soft fork and see if we can get anybody over to Leiden.
Well, my friends, on that note, we have made it. We're 90 minutes in.
Oh,
This has been incredible. Ben, I can't tell you how much I
had
appreciate.
to talk double the amount I was expecting. That was a lot.
No, you fucking killed it. When I asked you to join the show recently, you were like, "Yeah, as long as I'm on with another person, like, so I don't have to do all the talking." And you fucking killed it, man. This was amazing.
Yeah, I saw it pop up on my calendar, and I was just like, "Oh shit, I forgot I said I would do this." And
I got you.
here we are.
Until you were a
Tony
little
left
tipsy.
Maybe. Tony left me hanging here. I'm gonna have to give him some shit for that.
Yeah,
So.
Please do. But
I think we didn't have any too bad awkward silences.
No, it was
anything.
fucking great. You seem to think that your rants were bad. They were great. Q, take us away.
I appreciate it.
Ben, where can everyone stay up to date with you and everything going on with the Council of Bens and the Bitcoin Company?
Carmen and I actually just recorded our first pod ever in Nashville, where we talked a lot about the Council of Bens, and Tony was our first guest. I don't know if it'll ever see the light of day. It's a little risque, but if that ever comes out, that's probably the most info on the Council of Bens you'll ever get to hear. As far as where can you keep up with me, keep track of the Bitcoin Company, thebitcoincompany.com. We're on the App Store, Apple App Store and Android Store. Honestly, it's a great way to earn Bitcoin, and we got a ton of shit coming soon. Support your open source developers. OpenSats is a great way to do that. That's OpenSat, like Satoshi's. .org. You can donate to a variety of projects, and I think we're actually going to start listing a few of those projects in the TBC app. And yeah, I'm a Bitcoin person on Twitter, and I'm still at the phase where I can shit post and get away with it for a little bit. So it's like a nice healthy side habit I have. So
Guys, make sure you follow Ben. Make sure you follow the Bitcoin Company. Make sure you buy your tickets to Bitcoin Amsterdam. Do not leave just yet. Ansel is joining us, and we have a new episode of Fedwatch coming up with special guests. You're not going to want to miss who these special guests are. Huge surprise. I can't even do that with a straight face. Cut to commercial. We'll be back.
see you guys.
Peace.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Fedwatch. My name is Ansel Lindner, and we have some very special guests. But before I announce who those are, just some admin notes up front. So I have started a Fedwatch Clips channel. That's where I take out 3 clips of the best time during each of these episodes and put them up on their own YouTube channel. So you can find that by searching Fedwatch Clips on YouTube, or I will link it in a comment after the live stream down below. I also started a Telegram channel for Bitcoin and markets. That's my original podcast that I'm still going with the community. Now I've expanded into a Telegram channel, and I do live streams there. I've challenged myself to do 30 live streams in 30 days, just about 15 minutes of consciousness of what I'm thinking about for that day. Sometimes they're in the morning, sometimes they're in the evening, but check out my Telegram channel for more on that. Okay. Now, without further ado, the very special guests for today's show, Q and Chris. How are you guys doing?
I can't do this with a straight face.
Q almost gave it away. No, happy to be here. Thanks, Ansel.
All right. So thanks for joining. It's CK is jet setting, I guess, for Bitcoin Magazine, doing the do. So you guys have been gracious to not only host the live stream, but to come on to Fedwatch and help out. So how are you guys doing? How was that first 2 hours?
I'm still standing. You have not seen me take a seat in my non-existent seat behind me. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. I'm appreciative that you've asked us to join you, Ansel, and excited to dive into what we're going to talk about.
Q sold his chairs preemptively. I respect him for it to stack more sats, but I have not. I don't think the bottom's in yet. And I think we're hiking interest rates, and we can get into it in a little bit.
Well, I haven't replaced my crappy chair. So if you hear clicking, that's my chair clicking. It's an old one. But okay, yeah. So we're just going to go over recession, and I can talk a lot, guys, as you know. So just break in. Anytime you have a question, if you think I missed something, yeah. What's up?
Really quickly, I want to just shout out to everyone who's watching right now. If you have questions on anything we talk about or just anything Fed related, macro related, throw it in these chats. We see all the comments with the exception of Rumble. We are moderating that as well. So if you have a question, throw it in and we will do our best to get to it and answer it.
Yes, we are doing a Q and Ansel at the end, or a Q&A, if you will. So, all right. The big topic of the day is recession. Are we in a recession? Are we not in recession? You don't have to go to the slides quite yet, because I'm going to be ranting here at the front. So are we in a recession? Or are we not in a recession? I guess it looks like the administration has now redefined what recession is. They say it doesn't have to be 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, which for the 20 years that I've, had an economics degree and I've been studying this stuff, it's always been 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. But now I guess it is not that. But again, Fedwatch kind of anticipated this, because 3-4 shows ago, Christian and I started talking about, are we in a recession or depression? How do we define what those 2 things are? So Fedwatch once again was ahead of the curve on this. Then Joe Carlasari came on, and I was trying to push him down the road of saying we're in a depression, but he wouldn't go that far. And he said, yeah, he thinks a recession is coming and all of that. So again, Fedwatch is ahead of the curve, but it would probably surprise you guys to know that they didn't just redefine this. It was actually redefined in 2020, back at the COVID recession. So the COVID recession, if you look at those Federal Reserve charts with the gray bars that show when recession is, the 2020 recession is really tiny, and it's only March and April. The reason why that is because they redefined it back then to make that be a recession. I think they did it politically. So for the president in that election year, the president at the time would have a recession on his record. And now I think they're going the opposite way. So they narrowed it then. Now they're broadening it so that this recession doesn't count as a recession. And again, it's political for the president who is in office. So it's kind of interesting the way these things repeat themselves. But I believe that we are in a recession. We are in most likely a depression. And the reason I say that is because a depression would be low growth, low inflation, or even deflation for a long period of time. And within that period, you have multiple recessions. So I think that's what we're experiencing right now since the great financial crisis is a depression. And this is kind of maybe a second leg in this depression that we've been in for the last 13, 14 years. I think that it has dire consequences though, because if you can explain a lot of things by saying we're in a depression, right? You can say, what about the mental health issues? Well, we've had 14 years of 1% to 2% growth. It's not like back in the 80s and 90s when you had 5, 8, 10% growth rates. You've had 1% to 2%. So you have a lot of mental health issues. You have poor demographics. You have failing family type structures and failing values because we're in this depressionary period. So I think I like that way of describing why we're experiencing a lot of these things out there. So one thing that I've noticed over the last 24 hours was Walmart came out with a financial update for, I don't think it's an earnings call or, earnings. This is earnings season, so we should expect a lot of companies to come out with their earnings. Most of the big companies have not done that yet from what I've seen. And I'm not some expert. I'm not a guy that goes out there and watches these earnings and goes through all these pages and finds stuff. But I thought this was important because Walmart is the largest retailer in the world. They are double as big, or they're double the second place retailer, which is Amazon, and a global company. So they're a good proxy for at least the US economy, but most likely they're a good proxy for the global economy. So what happens to Walmart kind of happens to the world. So if we're using them, I'm going to read through this statement that they had here in a second. But, Walmart is a good proxy because the US has 70% of its GDP comes from consumption. And also we're the marginal global consumer. So if something happens to the American consumer, it's most likely going to affect, China, and it's going to roll downhill and affect Germany because we buy everything from China. If they can somehow find out how to get over this the zero COVID policy and their financial crisis that we covered last week, they're still going to be faced with their consumers aren't going to be wanting to buy their stuff or can't afford to buy their stuff. And then that rolls downhill. So they buy a lot of their heavy equipment from Germany. And they buy commodities from all over the world. So heavy machinery makers in Germany are going to have problems, as well as commodity producers are going to have problems. So it just rolls downhill like that. So it all starts with the American consumer is what I'm trying to say. And Walmart is a good proxy for that. So let me pull up this report. And the title is Walmart Inc. provides update for second quarter and fiscal year 2023. Company lowers profit outlook for Q2 and fiscal year 23. Operating margin expected to be about 4.2% for Q2 and 3.8 to 3.9% for fiscal year 23. Now, these are nominal figures. So if you include inflation in there and you say Q2, they have expected to, their operating margin is expected to be about 4.2%, then you have to take off inflation. Okay, let's continue down here. Comp sales for Walmart US, excluding fuel, are expected to be about 6% for the second quarter. This is higher than previously expected, with a heavier mix of food and consumables, which is negatively affecting gross margin rate. Food inflation is double digits and higher than at the end of Q1. This is affecting consumers' ability to spend on general merchandise categories and requiring more markdowns to move through the inventory, particularly apparel. And we've talked about this on the show a lot. The COVID cycle, the fiscal spending produced a inventory binge, and now we're at the end of an inventory cycle where they're going to have to start liquidating their inventory. And what does that look like? They had to cut their price, right? And I mean, I have been on Amazon a couple times in the last few days, and I just noticed that negative 10%, negative 20%, even some negative 40% markdowns on goods. So, this is really hitting retailers, and prices are falling, which is not, going to keep the quote unquote inflation or CPI going up. All right, continuing. During the quarter, the company made progress reducing inventory, managing prices to reflect certain supply chain costs and inflation, and reducing storage costs associated with the backlog of shipping containers. Consumers are choosing Walmart to save money during this inflationary period, and this is reflected in the company's continued market share gains in grocery. So even though people are starting to go to Walmart because it's cheaper, and Walmart's gaining market share, they're still, negative on the quarter. So instead of going to your expensive grocery store, you're going to go to Walmart. Instead of going to your expensive retailer, Target is a more expensive retailer than Walmart. You're going to go to Walmart. So Walmart's gaining market share, but they're still losing money. Moving down here, we have something about exchange rates here. This is currency based. So net sales include a headwind from currency of about $1 billion in the second quarter based on current exchange rates. The company expects a $1.8 billion headwind in the second half of the year. So the second half of the year, $1.8 billion loss from a strong dollar. That's what this is saying. Strong dollar affects Walmart. It affects everybody in the world. It affects all consumers and producers everywhere in the world, and Walmart is no exception. Continuing down a little bit further, operating income for the second quarter and full year is expected to decline 13 to 14% and 11 to 13% respectively. So second quarter, as high as a 14% loss in income, and the full year they're expecting up to a 13% loss in full income. So that's nominal too. If you put on top of that inflation or CPI, they're looking at 5% decline in income for Walmart. I think this is a great example of the state of the U.S. consumer, the state of the U.S. economy. All right, and I'll just add to that, most retailers are down. So Walmart went down 9% overnight, their stock, and Target went down. All sorts of other retailers.
Amazon also went down 4%.
What did?
I think Amazon went down 4%.
Yep,
and
Amazon.
Between just Amazon and Walmart, you have $100 billion wiped out from the markets now. Just because of those two companies, Amazon trading in sympathy with Walmart. Amazon hasn't even reported earnings. They just know, oh shit, if this is affecting Walmart in this way. And Ansel, you said it so perfectly. Like, this is, like, we talk a lot about, we're dealing with bad inflation, but consumer spending habits aren't really changing. I heard this fucking narrative too much from very sound, smart people saying, oh, well, you know what? So long as big box retailers like Walmart and Target are coming in at least on par or even like just barely missing, we're fine. We'll be fine. But now we're not seeing a barely miss. We're seeing Walmart come out and point blank say, yo, we fucked. I don't know if you curse on Fedwatch or not, so excuse my language there.
No, that's fine. Yeah, and it's interesting because they were essential businesses, remember? So like Walmart stayed open the whole time, I remember. At least by me it did. And so they're having this increase in demand because everybody's going to Walmart instead of their local mom and pop retailer, their higher end retailer. So that demand gets shifted to Walmart. So what does Walmart do? Well, they order more inventory. So they plussed up their inventory probably by 2 times because they thought that they were going to be, now the market share that they captured during the pandemic was going to continue like that. Well, it's not going to do that. Now they're just going to have to cut their prices. And we're on, you probably heard this recently. People have started talking about the bullwhip effect. So prices go up and then prices come down and smash you, right? And we've been talking about that on the show for a long time, and I got this from Steve Van Meter, who we have interviewed here on Fedwatch as well. But prices have gone up, but the consumer can't afford those higher prices. Like, they can't afford to have the same standard of living that they had just paying 10% more. So what the consumers had to do was tighten their belt, and then you're going to affect demand for other products throughout the economy. Like another business that had some news over the last 24 hours was Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't know if you guys know that company, but they sell those like scented candles and lotions and maybe towels for your bathroom, like fancy towels and stuff. That's pure disposable income, right? Or disposable spending. Well, they've been crushed because people are going away from those type of retailers to Walmart. And yeah, so it's a bullwhip effect. It's going to come back down. And now what can we say about CPI? I think CPI, I've been wrong. I thought CPI was going to peak back, May, June time, and it hasn't done that yet. But maybe this was the peak, and we're going to see this bullwhip effect with inventories and, see some prices coming down.
I want to, I'm seeing a little bit of a conversation in the chats as well. Ansel, can we maybe break down why a strong dollar is actually bad for U.S. companies and good for foreign companies? Can we break that down for a sec for everyone?
Well, no, it's not good for anybody.
I would argue that for a foreign company that does business in America, it is very good for them.
If you get paid in dollars and then you take it back to your country, yeah, I can see that.
There was some, not to cut you off, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm forgetting which there was some French luxury retailer or whatever that came out and said they're going to make an extra $180 million because of the discrepancy between the dollar and the euro now. But most companies that we interact with that we know are, to steal a phrase I just used, royally fucked.
Right. Well, that's a high-end retailer, you said?
Yes.
Like, I don't know, are they selling watches or something, like some real expensive retailer?
I'm going to get you the name right now.
Well, those companies are going to do okay because the very richest people, like rare art has been in a bull market recently too. So some of these high end things are going to be able to benefit and do that. But for the vast majority of companies, a strong dollar hurts everybody. It hurts the economy because it hurts the banks. So these banks in emerging markets, or these banks in, say, even in Europe, the European banks, once they start getting stressed, which they are very stressed right now, credit is going to be tight, right? Credit is going to be tight. And so the economy cannot function. It cannot heal itself if the money is so tight. And that happens because the strong dollar is wrecking the banks. So a strong dollar, you might be able to find one or two companies, yes, that as an example, that their market was not hit for some niche market or something like that. But in general, there are no winners in a strong dollar system.
It was Burberry. Burberry said this month that the strong dollar will add $200 million to its revenue this year.
They make coats, right? Like peak coats and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. It's something that my girlfriend makes me buy for her, I guess. Add it to the list.
All right. So any other questions on that part, Walmart?
Also, what are your expectations? Walmart's now coming out and saying we're going to make less money. So what do you do then in that position when you know you're going to be making less money? How are you cutting expenses?
Well, first and foremost, you're firing people.
Ding, ding, ding.
Off. Yeah.
And what happens when unemployment starts to go up to these numbers that the Fed wants to change and move around?
Yeah. Well, it's the Fed's going to be late. The Fed's, these numbers are going to move a lot faster than the Fed can react to, especially because I'm going to touch on this when I talk about the Fed raising rates, but they have a 2-month break after this. So tomorrow they come out with their thing, their policy decision, and then they have a 2-month break. They don't come back till September, late September. So yeah, they will be behind the 8 ball for sure once they come back. Another thing is that I don't believe the employment stats anyway in the first place. If you look at labor force participation, it is, I don't know, is it 5 million people below where it was pre-pandemic? And 5 million people didn't die in the pandemic. They just aren't coming back to work. So the inflation or the unemployment rate I don't really buy anyway in the first place.
Ansel, do you also think, I mean, let's be honest, it's an election year. November is obviously November 3rd is when the
Yeah.
election is. So September is when they come back. If things are not good, we're expecting either a 75 basis point or potentially a full percentage point hike, and things start collapsing even more. Do you think September is a good time to reverse, do a Fed pivot, and drop the rates, maybe not to zero, but cut it in half and start pumping QE, stimulus, whatever you want to call it? Do you think, I mean, that seems like what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like the politicians, or at least the politicians in office now, would love for that to be the economy to be going in the other direction, going into an election cycle, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and remember Powell met with Biden a couple months ago, and there was probably some arm twisting in there in that meeting. I don't know, but geez, I believe that Powell is pretty resistant to this political pressure, to be honest with you, because I've been following some of the appointees to the Fed, and we've talked about it here on the show with Sarah Bloom Raskin. She was going to be vice chair, and she's a huge progressive. She wants to use the Fed for climate change stuff. And so, you know, and that she got shot down by the Senate. You know, it seemed to be a coordinated effort to not get her in there. She ended up pulling out her candidacy, or whatever you call it. And then Lael Brainerd, who is also more progressive than Powell. Powell's somewhat conservative, I think. Lael Brainerd was up for Powell's job, but Powell got the nod anyway. So that if you look at their kind of, I guess, personnel choices, they have been really stiff-arming politics to a large degree. And so I think Powell is fairly insulated. He also is pushing off CBDCs, right? So he has shown over the last couple of years that he is fairly resilient to political pressure. So I don't know. I really don't know what that meeting was like with Biden. Biden might have said, hey, I need you to figure out a way to keep gas prices low, cut inflation, but don't crash the economy. And Powell was, yes, Mr. President. So I don't know. I don't know how much that goes into his thinking.
Yeah, thanks, Ansel, for that. I'm good, Q, unless you got anything.
No, let's keep it rolling.
All right, hold on. My little boy here is needing my help for something.
No, you're
All right.
good.
All right, you're good, buddy. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, let's get into the slides now. If we can go to slide number 3. This is one of the slides from a post that went out on Zero Hedge this morning by Lance Roberts. He is part of the Real Investment Advice team. They have a YouTube channel and, of course, a investment advisorship somewhere. And we did interview Michael Leibowitz, which is one of his partners. We interviewed him here on Fedwatch, but Lance Roberts hasn't returned my calls. So I want to get him on the show as soon as possible. But he had a piece on Zero Hedge, and this was one of the charts in there. And he talked about Yellen, how Yellen said, I don't see recession coming. None of the indicators are there. We've cut our fiscal deficit by 1.5 trillion, and we have low unemployment and XYZ. We're not in a recession. And so this is Lance Roberts' refutation of that, at least the fiscal deficit side, where you can see, yeah, we have cut the fiscal deficit by 1.5 trillion, but that's because we increased it by 2 trillion. And so we just cut it by 1.5 this year. That's not really saying much. Also, I was recently on Stephan Livera's podcast, and I think that episode just came out today, right before we went live. So you guys can check that out over on Stephan Livera's feed. But my analogy in there about fiscal spending and why fiscal spending is not inflation. First off, they borrow it, right? It's always borrowed when, well, let's just stick with that. It's borrowed money. So what they're doing is they're pulling future demand into the present. So if you think of a container of water or a tank of water, you put your hand in and you pull some water forward, right? You're going to increase the water level in front of your hand. That's demand right now. But behind your hand, the water level is actually lower than it was before. So there's a lull in demand after you fiscally spend. And the way that governments typically address this is they keep increasing the fiscal deficit year after year after year to stave off that inevitable crash in demand that's coming. This time, they haven't done it. And Janet Yellen is actually bragging that they haven't done it. She's bragging that they haven't kept the fiscal budget up, the fiscal deficit high enough to keep that crash in demand from formulating. And I'm not saying that I think she should have done it. They probably, I don't know. It's a tough spot to say what they should and shouldn't do, because if they don't come in, we have a financial crash that will take us back to Mad Max. And that's my true belief. If we let this thing collapse before Bitcoin's ready, of course, Bitcoin can come in and Bitcoin can take over and Bitcoin can fix these things. But before Bitcoin's ready, if they let it collapse, it will be a Mad Max type scenario. So it's kind of a tough place to be in. But they should know that they can't just cut fiscal spending off. And that's what they're doing. They're preparing us for a crash. So if you go to the next slide, this is the next chart from Lance Roberts. And it's kind of messy, but it's kind of pretty too. It's all of the spreads. So each line is either the 10-year, the 10 and 1 spread, the 10 and 2 spread, the 10 and 5 spread, or the 5 and 3 month spread. Each one is a different spread. I think he has 10 or 20 on this, or 15, I think, on this chart. But you can see that each time these, they kind of cascade and waterfall down to inversion. And then we have a recession. It's very, very clear. If you go to the next slide, what I did was I zoomed in. This is my own chart. I just took a few of those for a representation, just to zoom in on this. But what I wanted to do was show the great financial crisis back in 2008. You can see that the yields started compressing, but they sloped down nicely, right? It wasn't like all of a sudden they crashed to zero. And then if you go to after that, the reflation, and they sloped down nicely till 2019, when we had the repo rumble, we had the Fed pivot, we had all those things that happened in 2019. And then of course, coronavirus. But that's a nicely sloping downward curve. But right now, if you look at right now, it's straight down. All of these curves are inverting over the last week or month. It's like a brick wall. The economy is going to hit a brick wall. And that's what I think when you look at the fiscal spending chart, you look at this, these yield curve inversion chart here, that everything's hitting a wall. I think something is going to happen before September. So they're in this 2-month break. Well, now they have 2 months of something really bad could happen within the next 8 weeks. And I try not to be an alarmist. And I just wrote a piece about not being an alarmist, and that there's so many people in macro that are saying, like oil's going to $200 a barrel and the world is going to end and the S&P is going to crash to zero, and, or take 50% off at least. And there's all these alarmists out there. And I try not to be that, but I think that we're coming to the wall and the Fed knows it. So we'll see what they do tomorrow. If you go to the next slide, this is a chart from Jeff Schneider this morning on Twitter. And the blue line is real GDP. And you can see the dotted line is if we would have maintained the pre-COVID growth rate. And you can see we never got back to trend. And now we're declining again. If you put on here the pre-global financial crisis, so if you go back before 2007 and you put that trend line on here, it would be way higher. I mean, it would be off the chart, because we have just gone so far down below the pre-GFC normal growth trend that, it can't even be charted on here. Anyway, on the right side, the 4 little lines there, he's kind of extrapolating. The top one is if we repeat a .com type recession for GDP. And then the next one is the first half of the great financial crisis. The dotted red one is the Volcker recession, 81 and 82. And then the bottom, the thick red line, is second half of the great financial crisis. So he's saying if we are to repeat one of these type of events, this is what it would look like. Now, this is where I'm not going to be an alarmist, because I really think that we could be close. We could be on the path of a dot-com type GDP pullback, where we do see some stock market declines. We see a financial crisis, but it doesn't really rattle the market that much. And how would I describe this? Well, back in 2019, if you guys remember the repo rumble, it happened, like I said, I think September 16th or something like that of 2019. It was just in a niche part of the financial system, repos, and it froze up. And even on the run treasuries, that's the most pristine of the pristine of collateral, could not find a bid. The financial system froze, but nobody out in the normal market knew about it. It was just a very niche event that happened, and that made the Fed pivot. They pivoted from QT to QE right away. There was no pause even. So I think that we could be looking at a situation like that. We're hitting a brick wall. There's going to be some malfunction deep within the credit market, the credit system. Most people, it's going to be transparent to most people. They're not going to see it, but the Fed is going to be scared because, the system is hours away from breaking and going to Mad Max. And that's where they pivot. So, all right, I rest my case right here. What do you guys have? Comments, questions, concerns?
I guess I'd like to just hear what your expectations for next week are. Do you think things like this Walmart news will change the 75 basis point hike, which seems all but certain now? I know that there was the inkling that we might see 100 after the inflation reads that we got 2 weeks ago, last week. I don't know. It all blends together at this point for me, but would love your expectations there.
Yeah. So it's tomorrow actually. So the policy will come out tomorrow, whether they hike 75. Right now, if you go to the last slide there, Chris, is the current expectations. And this is via the CME Fedwatch tool. And we named this show before they named this tool. So they took our name for this tool, by the way. So CME, come on, we need some royalties on that. Anyways, you can see that the left-hand column there is 75 bips, 75% chance of a 75 basis point hike. And then the right-hand column is a 25% chance of a 100 basis point hike. Now, I don't think they can do 100 because they're speeding towards a brick wall and they know it. The credit market knows it. The credit market is going to force their hand to pivot eventually. And if they go less than 75, I think the market will sense blood in the water, right? They'll think that the Fed is going to pivot. The Fed is closer to easing than before, and their rhetoric won't have as much influence. So I think they're stuck. They have to do 75 tomorrow and pray that something doesn't break before September, which I think it will. So that's my thoughts.
So then let's go back to that slide number 6. And this is now to both you and Chris. Chris, I don't really care what you think. I only care what Ansel thinks about tomorrow. I kid. When you are answering, please tell us what your expectations are as well. But say it's a 75-point hike. What effect does that have? Does the market act surprised? Or does it kind of do what it's been doing this whole time? And every time you meet these expectations, the market reacts positively at first, only to then drop lower because then it rationalizes, oh shit, I have now doubled my interest rate again, or this will be the first time over the last 3 rate hikes that we actually aren't doubling the interest rate, but it's still very significant to have a 75 basis point rate hike.
Chris, you want to take that one?
I mean, I guess we've always been saying Bitcoin's been a leading indicator. It's interesting. It's obviously fallen. It was up to 24.1 or 23 mid. Now we're like, I haven't even checked today. It was like 22 last time I checked last night, or 21, around that range. I don't know if it's going to fall out and collapse underneath it, like based on the basis point hike. I think it's kind of like wait and see. I guess it gives me hope that Bitcoin's kind of remained at the price that it's currently at. Okay, Q is saying it's under 21K right now. So it has dropped a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see if it holds the 20K like support line that Q talks about, or if it falls below that. So I really don't know. I think a lot of people have said a lot has rotated out of Bitcoin and crypto abroad. I hate saying that, but basically a lot has fallen out of that market, where a lot of people that I listen to and respect say that the stock market's still overvalued by multiples. If you look at their price to earnings, or the mainly looking at like price to earnings and a bunch of other metrics there, that they think the stock market, like maybe it doesn't roll out of crypto or Bitcoin in general, it stays kind of flat or sustains, but basically everything else starts to roll out, whether it's, the bond market as well as the stock markets have further percentage to fall. And, really the Fed doesn't care about the crypto space or Bitcoin industry in general. They do care about the stock market, whether they say, oh, we don't. Like if it were to drop 25%, 30%, like within the next couple months, that would be what I think would be a cause for concern for like an emergency meeting of a reversal, even though they're not supposed to meet again till September, that like either Janet Yellen or Jerome Powell is going to be on the mic being like, hey, like, we've met, and like based on the factors that we see, we have to pivot back, or, we're not going to raise, or maybe a slight drop. I don't know what it'd be, but basically they would change course with that. Over to you, Ansel.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I would say the bond market, rates have peaked, and they are rolling over for sure. And what that means is that people are looking for safe and liquid assets. So that's telling the market that trouble is coming. Trouble is just around the corner, right? And so that could affect stocks. That definitely could affect stocks. But I don't know. I'm not expecting a big sell-off in stocks, because where else are people going to go? They could go to Bitcoin, of course, but not all of them will go to Bitcoin right away, at least. And also the stock buybacks, every so often there's a freeze on stock buybacks, so that you can't buy back your own stock. And that just is lifting right now. So these companies are going to start buying back their own stocks. And I think that's going to really put a floor under the market and go up. Plus, stocks are forward looking, and they know they can smell the pivot coming. They can smell it. And what's going to happen when the pivot comes? Stocks are going to shoot up through the roof. So that's what I think. Most people are thinking that the Fed will pivot sometime by the end of the year, and stocks are sniffing that out right now. But interesting that you talked about the Bitcoin price. So if you go to slide number 8, that is the Bitcoin chart. It's a 4-hour chart. And I think it's very interesting that the June hike happened almost at this exact same level on the chart, almost to the dollar. And since then, Bitcoin has had a very slight upward sloping angle. So it would be weird I think it's weird to think that maybe the Fed raising 75 bips would be bad for Bitcoin, because since they raised in June, we're at the exact same level with a slightly better foundation, with higher highs and higher lows. So what do you guys think about that chart?
Q, you want to comment on it?
Ansel's not going to like my comments, but
Comment, man. Comment.
I think it's really interesting. You're seeing a bull flag kind of form, but then you also have to start to factor in other ideas. Like, well, this is where the June hike is, where the levels were for, what was it? I guess technically it would have been the April hike at the beginning of April, would have been when we were all in Miami, hovering above the 30Ks. I think these 75-point hikes are scaring off institutional investors, but it is absorbing retail. And I think certain things that we will continue to see trend higher in Bitcoin are things like the number of wallets with one Bitcoin, a minimum of one Bitcoin. The amount of Bitcoin on exchanges will continue to trend lower. And other things that I think will actually continue to trend lower are the hash rate and difficulty for some time, because you're going to see not Bitcoin itself feel the pressure of more expensive debt, but we've already seen it in the miners, and many miners with debt and on high leverage have gotten rocked. And a lot of them have built their entire business model on exactly that. We see consolidation in other sectors and industries a lot. I bring up Hollywood because that's a realm in which I'm familiar with and I come from. You've seen studios buy up other studios. Watch miners buy up other miners right now. That's something that I'm actually keeping an eye on. That to me could actually be this bear market's version of miner capitulation, when some big name miner, some miner that you are familiar with, announces that they've been acquired by one of the other big players in the space.
Citibank.
Sorry?
But they've been acquired by Citibank.
Oh God, help us. If that happens, we're so fucked. But like, I'm thinking something to the tune of like Hut 8 merging or buying, I don't fucking know, Core Scientific, not actual stuff that I know about. I'm purely talking out of my ass. But that to me is the equivalent of AT&T merging with, what was the?
Bell South.
Sure. I was thinking of the other one, Singular Wireless.
Warner Brothers.
Verizon, yeah.
Like, or T-Mobile and Sprint. I'll make it easier for everyone. Like that type of consolidation where it's like you are literal competitors, but you are sort of vying for that 4th, 5th, 6th place in your industry. And instead you want to combine to now take on the marathons and the riots. That would actually be sort of, in my opinion, a real bottom.
I want to comment on what Ansel said. I think in this epoch, or at least this bull market, there was a lot of lending that was done off of the ASICs themselves. So, you could obviously leverage up your Bitcoin, but a lot of people are like, oh, these ASICs are going up in value. I'll give you a loan against the ASICs. If you have $1 million of ASICs, we'll give you whatever, $500,000. You can go acquire more ASICs. Well, people are finding out the third-party risk. I know Bitcoiners point this out all the time. Not your keys, not your coins, not your ASICs, not your ASICs. You know what I mean? Like, so where a lot of the banks are like, hey, we're coming to collect those ASICs. So it's like, well, I'm in a hosting facility that I also don't own. It's by the electric company, and the electric company says you're not allowed on here unless you have a warrant. So it's all like this contagion within contagion kind of thing. So I could see in the future, I think there's still going to be an ASIC lending market, but I think lenders are going to be a lot more leery, meaning that they are not going to be as easy to give up money without having the counterparty sign. Or in, like, to Ansel's point, imagine Citibank's like, okay, fine, you screw us over, we're taking over the ASICs in the current contract that you have with the power producer. So now Citibank or JP Morgan or whatever becomes an ASIC miner through proxy of defaulting on their debt. But that's something that I think we'll see in the next wave for sure, because a lot of them are still not able to get the miners. I know Marty Bent and Odell brought this up. They think a lot of people are just going to be selling them to cash. So if you want to get into ASIC mining, this is not financial advice, but they think there's still more prices to come, because once they finally get the ASICs, they're like, I'll take the loss. I'll write it off on the balance sheet. I just want to sell it for cash. And that's going to further push the price down. He thinks there's going to be a small subset that says, screw it, we're already underwater on the loan. We might as well just mine for Bitcoin ourselves. But that'll be like a small percentage. He thinks a lot of people, cash is king in the strengthening dollar. They just want the dollars, and they're just trying to clean up their balance sheets. But that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. Sorry to diverge from that. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
No, that's interesting. So you're saying that they're going to sell the new ASICs that they receive, or the Bitcoin that they mine?
I think the ASICs. So in order to cover the loans against the ASICs that they gave out, but like perfect example, like an S19, just like probably 8 months ago at this point was about $14K. Right now, I looked beforehand, they're going for about $3,500. So that's about what, a 75% drop, 80% drop, somewhere in that range. If my maths are right, that like, that's a lot of equity that they loaned out. If it's 50% loan to value, they're underwater on that alone. Like they were hoping to recoup at 7K, or at least 6 to 7K. You're $3,000 under that, or at least. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. And talking about acquisitions, we talked about this back in like 2017, 2018. I haven't heard anybody talk about it recently. That I was saying back then that for Bitcoin to really become mainstream, a lot of these companies are going to have to get acquired. And Coinbase is having a lot of trouble. And I always thought Coinbase would be acquired. So now that it would have to be a hostile takeover, right, of the stock. But they could be acquired in that way by somebody, depending. I think this is very interesting. This is a growing phase for the Bitcoin market. People are learning a lot about the mining industry. I mean, Joe Carlosari, He does a lot of his legal work on the mining side, and I mean, a lot of lessons are being learned right now. This is just going to make Bitcoin stronger in the end. So that's all I have for my new stuff for this show, guys. Should we take Q&A from anybody that has anybody asked a question in the chat?
Q, I don't know if you've been looking at the chat, if there's anything that's come through particularly.
I have been, and truth be told, I asked the one question that I thought was worth our time in the middle of our conversation.
Okay, well, I have one from my community.
Yeah, please.
We should go there. Okay, so this is Mr. Pays from my Discord server, and he asks, many are saying they will continue hawkish until something breaks, but it appears things are already breaking. What is your base case for the Fed action rest of the year? What is catalyst for them to pivot, and what will the pivot look like? So we kind of answered that, right? I think that they're stuck right now on 75. They're have a 2-month break right now before September. And really, historically, if you look back at like many of the big stock market crashes, if you look back at, I think it was Bear Stearns was at the end of Q3, you have 87, the crash of 87 was in October, I believe. And then you have the 1929 was October. So all of these seem to happen at the end of Q3. So I would put it that there's going to be some sort of crisis by the end of Q3 that's going to make them pivot, at least pause their rate hikes. So that's what I think. There's another question here. He has another question is, how quickly does the ECB put their tail between their legs and about face? One and done. Well, we've talked a lot about the ECB here on Fedwatch. I think they're in trouble. I really don't know, because they're so screwed up over there in Europe. They have to get some sort of narrative management on inflation, but their inflation is very different than the United States because they have this energy crisis, right? They are facing, it's like their energy costs are 10 times what they were last year. I mean, it is ridiculous. That's like you right now say for my air conditioning bill here in Florida, it's like $300 a month or something like that, or $250, 10 times that. I couldn't imagine what they're going through over there with this price increases for Europe. So Europe is in a whole different bag. I think what that tells me is that they are going to have to end these sanctions at some point sooner than later. They're going to have to end these sanctions because now look, the turbines with the Nord Stream pipelines. So they took them 2 months to get this one turbine fixed. And Canada didn't want to ship it back to Siemens in Germany because they didn't have the right paperwork. And the Russian sanctions said they shouldn't trade with Russia. And Germany was like, no, get that freaking turbine back here now and get it installed and fixed, right? Finally, it got fixed. And now Russia says there's another turbine that's out. So, I mean, this is just going to keep happening, and they're in big trouble. They need to end the sanctions sooner rather than later, or else, we're looking at maybe a 1791 or whenever the French Revolution was. We're looking at something like that type of thing going on in Europe, where they're going to kick out all of these globalist WEF types out of Europe. And I think that might be happening before the ECB has to pivot. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I know the ECB, they've done one hike, Ansel. I forget, right? Or they've done one or none at all right now. They did one
hike. Yep.
And their inflation rate right now is what, 8.6, 9.1, and we've done a bunch more. So on top of energy prices are spiking and all this, and they can't really, they can't continue to hike while the dollar is strengthening. So then their energy gets even more expensive. It's like stacking on stacking on stacking on top of each other. So yeah, they're in a really, really bad spot right now.
Yeah, and these recessions kind of roll downhill like I was talking about earlier. So the U.S. consumer is hurting. So now the Chinese producer is going to be hurting the exporter, and they import large machinery from Germany and Russia. So now those people are going to be hurting. And I mean, it just rolls downhill. And I think even though Europe is one of the dirtiest shirts in the world right now, the ECB, it's just going to get uglier for them going forward. I have one more question from my community. Should I go with it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see. I think I have 5 minutes by the clock left on my time. Okay, so Patrick McCoy on Twitter, he asked me in a DM, curious your take on what Bitcoin did. That, you know, the Peter McCormick podcast with Jeff Schneider, because Jeff Schneider was talking about deflation and he was talking about elasticity of money. I have responded to this in my own podcast over on Bitcoin and Markets. I believe it was my most recent episode on that feed. So if you go to just search for Bitcoin and Markets in your podcast app and you'll find it. My general thinking really quick on this is I agree with Jeff partly. I don't go all the way. I think he's a brilliant analyst, brilliant understanding of the Eurodollar system, but I don't think that he understands the monetary arguments of this. So the world is at the end of a 75-year huge dollar credit bubble, and there's no getting out of it because it's a credit-based system. So the problem is the form of the money. If the money had a backing, like say gold or Bitcoin, then you could let these bad debts liquidate. But when there is no backing and the entire system is an intricate web of interconnecting liabilities and counterparty risk, if you let one person default, say you let Citibank default, everybody defaults because they owe something to everybody on the street. So this is not capable. They're not capable of letting bad debts liquidate because of the form of the money. Eventually, we have to go away from that. We have to back it with something like Bitcoin or gold, and until then, we're just going to have low growth and low inflation. So I kind of go with Jeff halfway, but not the whole way. And that's all I got, guys. Any other questions to wrap up the show?
Where can everyone stay up to date with everything you're cooking, Ansel?
All right. Well, I do a free Friday newsletter at bitcoinandmarkets.com. Please go sign up for that. It's called the Fundamentals Report. I do like a market rant up front, and then I do a price analysis, a mining analysis, mining news, and stuff like that. Sometimes I get into macro and altcoins in there as well. I do my own podcast, Bitcoin and Markets, have my Telegram channel, Bitcoin and Markets. So anywhere, just search for Bitcoin and Markets and you'll find me. And you can follow me on Twitter at Ansel Lindner.
Ansel, thank you as always. If you guys aren't subscribed to Bitcoin and Markets, if you like Fedwatch, you really should subscribe to the newsletter. It's pure signal. I absolutely love reading it on Fridays. So thank you for all you do, Ansel. Thank you for joining us. Should we wrap? Should I just pull the plug? Just bye.
Let's wrap it up.
I want to remind everyone to get your tickets for Bitcoin Amsterdam before ticket prices go up again. Use promo code BMLive and get 10% off. And of course, the censorship-resistant issue of the print magazine is available at Barnes & Nobles here in America and available to you at the Bitcoin Magazine store as well. Use promo code BMLive to get 10% off of that and anything else you see at the Bitcoin Magazine store. That's a wrap. We'll be joined by Lawrence Lepard tomorrow, and we're going to break down the Fed meeting and what happens with these Fed rates. So you're not going to want to miss that.